My daughter said that she would rather see me dead than actually admit that I'm her father, as she's so embarrassed of the fact that I work as a janitor that she literally lied to her college friends about who I actually was by saying that I was the family driver instead of saying that I was her father. So after really thinking about it, I decided to take some action by refusing to ever pay for her college ever again, essentially saying that she's got to figure it out herself since it really seems like she doesn't respect me but only really wanted my money. And right now I seriously just don't know what to do. Welcome back to Am I the Jerk, the only show where entitlement can go so far that you'll admit you'd rather someone be dead than actually be your family member. Which, holy crap, the original poster's going through it on this one. Their daughter literally throws them under the bus in a way that is so unbelievably toxic. It's super devastating, but also the resulting revenge is equally cathartic. So this is a great first story. I think you're gonna love this one. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already, click the bell to turn on notifications, and with that, let's get started. To start things off, my daughter's 20 years old and halfway through college. Her mother and I have been divorced for about 6 years, and I've always been involved in her life. I've paid child support on a regular basis, I helped her find an apartment near the places that she's going to be studying, and I often sent her money for living expenses, not because I had to, but because I wanted her to have a good start in life and because I love her. Now, a few years ago, I offered to pay for her education. I understood that it was difficult for me, but I really didn't want her to start her adult life in debt. I work as a night cleaner at a shopping center, and sometimes I take on side jobs, cleaning trash areas at restaurants and warehouses and stuff like that. The work is hard, it's dirty, and afterwards I smell like a lot of different chemicals. But the pay is decent, especially for the night hours. I never considered it shameful, but instead it's just a way to make money. Anyways, a month ago, she had a university event student-parent meeting. At first, she didn't even want me to come along at all, but then she changed her mind and said I could be there because I needed to bring her some documents and some food. So after my shift, I went home and I took a shower, I changed into some clean clothing, and then I drove over to her place. Well, when I walked up to her and her friends, she looked at me and immediately looked away. I didn't even realize what was going on at the moment. Then one of the girls asked who I was, and that's when my daughter let out an awkward laugh and said, "Oh, he's just the family driver who brought me some things." We then stepped aside to talk, and it's there she started saying that she felt out of place amongst the other students, that most of her friends' parents were doctors or lawyers or business people, that they drove nice cars, they looked confident, and that she hated having to explain that her father worked as a janitor. And then she said something that's still on my mind. She said she was tired of lying to people about my work, that sometimes it's easier for her to say that her father is dead or lives far away than to explain what her father actually does for money. Now, when I heard this, I didn't yell, I didn't curse, but instead I just walked away in silence. Well, a couple days later, there arrived in the mail a payment notice for the next semester. I then opened the banking account and I sat there staring at the screen for maybe about 10 minutes. But after sitting there for a while, I decided to just close it. And on that same day, I wrote to her that since she was so ashamed of my job and of me, then maybe she should try earning that money herself and understand how hard it is. I explained that I didn't want to keep paying for the life of someone who would rather imagine me dead than see me as their father. And then after that, for the first time ever, I didn't pay for her, but instead I just paid for my obligations. Well, my ex-wife is now saying, "You're acting like a child and you're punishing our daughter over a single phrase spoken in the heat of the moment," saying that I'm just ruining her future by not paying for this. My daughter writes that she didn't mean it that way and that she just snapped and said too much because of the stress and the pressure. But I just can't get the thought out of my head that she was never interested in me. She was only interested in my money and literally nothing else, which really puts me in a pickle because right now I don't know if I'm the jerk for not paying, and at this point I really just don't know what to do. Oh, holy crap, your daughter's super toxic, bro. She literally would rather say, "Oh, my dad's dead," or "Oh, he works across the country. He's absent from my life. I don't even know him. Oh, that's just a driver for the family. I don't know him." Like, she would rather straight up lie or make up some bogus excuse to be like, "Oh, that's not my father," than just actually admit and be like, "Oh yeah, my dad works really hard. He works as a janitor and I'm really proud of him." Which, by the way, how is she not grateful for the work you're putting in, dude? You're paying for her college. You paid for everything in her life. And she's gonna sit there and be like, "I'd rather you were dead than be my father." Like, what are we talking about? You can't just say that to somebody and expect them to like still bankroll your life. Like, what is going on right now? A lot of people in the comment section of this post also agree that, yeah, maybe it's time for the ex to step up. Like, it's so classic. The ex-wife is trying to be like, "Wow, I can't believe you're ruining our daughter's future. You need to pay for this right now." And it's like, okay, well, how about you step up, lady? Like, what's the problem here? The daughter of the story doesn't respect the original poster. They literally just wanted their money and for their dad to be some rich businessman with a fancy car. But it's like, dude, who has that? Who like actually has that in today's day and age? Most of those people that she's looking at probably leased out that car, and in some cases are probably just straight up lying. So bro, I don't care what anybody says. Maybe I'm the outlier here, here, but I do not think you're the jerk here at all, dude. Leave a comment down below if you disagree. But if I had a daughter who was like, I'm ashamed of you, can you just die instead? Like, I would never pay for anything for that kid, pretty much ever. I'd be like, oh, you're 20 years old? Okay, my hands are clean of this. You can go do your own thing. Go into debt for all I care. Take out student loans. Have fun. But you can't just disrespect me and think you're gonna get away with it, especially for something like this that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Like, this crosses a serious line that I would never want to ignore. So with that in mind, you're definitely not the jerk, and I think you're doing the right thing here. If you like Am I the Jerk and what we're doing over here, please check out Am I the Genius. It's going to be linked down below in the description. Just click and go ahead and subscribe to them. And also, if you have your own stories you want to submit, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you want to submit your own stories. We're reading them all the time and we're picking out the best ones, so trust me, we would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for telling my husband that his friend isn't welcome at our home anymore after he literally involved her in one of our arguments, where he actually said to me that he trusts her more than me, putting me in a situation where I'm still very pissed off over that, and now I just don't know what to do. Here's basically how we got there. Okay, so my husband has a longtime friend from his school days who I will call Anne for the sake of the story. She is actually a nice person, and I don't have any personal issues with her, and honestly, the three of us used to hang out quite a bit. Well, recently, my husband and I argued about me forgetting to turn off the stove knob. We had just moved into a new place and somehow I forgot a few times. Now, I understand that it's serious and I genuinely made an effort to be more careful, but during the argument, my husband panicked and called Anne to vent. I could literally hear him inviting her to come stay at our house, which we both pay for, all while he was away for a week. He also told her to take a set of keys and check that everything was turned off. At one point, I even heard her ask, is she mentally disturbed? Why does she forget it? And at the time, I just let it slide, assuming that it was just him venting to a friend. Later on, I told him it wasn't right to bring our private arguments to a third person. Well, instead of understanding, he got defensive and said if I hadn't been so irresponsible, he wouldn't have called her. Then he said something that really stuck with me. He said that he trusted her more than me. Now, the week he was away, I got sick for most of it. But despite that, he kept asking if I had invited Anne over and when I was going to hang out with her. Now, I don't like conflict, so I said I'd reach out when I felt better, and when I finally did, she canceled at the last minute. After all of this, I told my husband that Anne is not welcome in our house anymore. He's free to continue his friendship with her, but just not in our shared space. This became a bigger issue because she was inviting her boyfriend and it mattered to him. But then his mother got involved, which guess what? She always does. Her take was that I should have brought this up at a better time and not during another argument. As part of resolving things, I was expected to stop talking to one of my own friends because she had yelled at my husband when he was complaining about me. And apparently that was disrespectful, and I should have defended him even though he was criticizing me. Now, even though I gave him the grace to stay in touch with Anne, the return from him and his mother was that I'm not allowed to reach out to my own friend. And that honestly sucks, even though I know I'm a free woman, which bear in mind, I don't have a lot of friends and I keep the ones I love very close. So now I'm really wondering, am I really the jerk for setting that boundary about Anne not being welcome at our home? Because right now I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think your husband is incredibly immature. Like, holy crap, he goes to another woman and his mom to complain about you? Like, dude, this is a husband problem, not an Anne problem. Like, seriously, keeping Anne out of your house isn't gonna solve anything, bro. Like, for me, I would need to address the problem straight from the source, which in this situation is your husband. Like, I don't care what's going on. So no, you're not the jerk. I don't know why he would involve this lady in the first place for like, oh, I'm just gonna vent or whatever might be going on. But in my opinion, it comes off as incredibly weird, and you definitely don't deserve to be treated like that. This next story is proof that if you fly too close to the sun, you're definitely gonna get burned, as the original poster literally sleeps around between two best friends and somehow is devastated when things don't work out in his favor. So yeah, strap in for this one. This is a fantastic next story and I think you're gonna like it. Let's get started. Okay, I need to start off with a bit of context. I'm a 21-year-old male and I have a friend who I will call Nina who's close to the same age as me. She's 20 years old and I met her last October. Nina is a pretty flirtatious person to everybody, and when I first hung around her, I took it seriously. Every time we would hang out, she would always hit on me in a joking way, and at first, that's all it was. I mean, my friendship with her was a good one, where we could talk and laugh and just enjoy each other's company. Now, let me introduce another person who I will call Lexi, who's also 20 years old. Lexi was Nina's best friend ever since first grade. They were inseparable. Nina introduced me to Lexi and we clicked immediately. The first time we met, we had a long conversation lasting until like 3:30 in the morning. Everything felt so easy with Lexi. Lexi, and it was the first time I didn't feel like I needed to hide anything with her. Because of that, though both were attractive, I started to lean more towards Lexi as someone I wanted to explore a future relationship with. Both people made it very clear to me that they saw me as just a friend, and that I would be nothing more. Even when this escalated, nobody put a label on anything going on. Nobody made anything clear on exclusivity or anything of the sort. Both of them also encountered some pretty serious friendship issues between the two of them, and they even took some space a month and a half ago due to Nina's request. Nina still cared about Lexi and vice versa, but Nina needed time to figure out how she wanted to approach her feelings. And so with that bit of information out of the way, let's get into the main story. My relationships with the two women began to deepen. With Lexi, she set a boundary from the very beginning, outlining how she does not want me as anything more due to her paranoia of male friends having feelings for her. Now, I understood and respected that boundary. However, every time we hung out afterwards, she started asking me if I could cuddle with her. Then it escalated to her asking me if I could help alleviate some pent-up stress that she has, because she said, "Oh, I just needed a man right now," if you know what I mean. She would tell me over and over that I was not physically attractive to her, and because of that, she did not actually want to sleep with me, but instead, she just wanted me to do some things to her, if you know what I mean. She confided in me how she feels some sort of competitive jealousy when it comes to me and Nina, and even though she hates it, she continually acts on it to try and win me over. Well, on the other side of this, Nina's flirtation started to heighten. She began to treat me differently than her other friends she flirted with, and her friends began to notice the shift in behavior and saw our chemistry together. We were also supported by everybody in the beginning because, well, everyone saw what we were just starting to see. Well, things started to escalate from there, and yeah, we ended up sleeping together, and thus began our unlabeled physical relationship. And trust me, Nina was very flirty after this. She would talk about loving my scent, being obsessed with everything about me, and would constantly talk about how nice everything about me was. She desired me and I felt it. However, I always assumed it was just physical. She explicitly stated that she wasn't ready for a relationship, and I respected it and assumed that she didn't want to commit to me and vice versa. And I just want to jump in as the narrator right now. Holy crap, this is so messy what is going on right now. Anyways, back to the story. Now, because I was Lexi's friend still, I still made plans to visit her the weekend after me and Nina started sleeping together. I talked to Nina about it, and she said that I can tell Lexi all about us. So I ended up visiting and telling her later on in the night. Now, a bunch of things ended up happening between that and what occurred next, and none of which are important or really that memorable. But one thing led to another, and me and Lexi also ended up sleeping together. Because of our emotional connection, things between us felt almost like a relationship while I was visiting her. Flirty touches, flirty words, and the tension just all added up between us. I ended up leaving the Monday after that weekend, and Lexi told me that she wanted to process everything alone. And I also needed to take some time to figure out what just happened. But the minute I came back, I saw Nina, and our relationship continued like nothing happened. But at this point, a hole started to form in my skull, one that was very obvious. I mean, how do I tell Nina about me and Lexi? Do I even tell her at all? What do I say? I was very emotionally activated, and I didn't want to make any rash decisions or end up saying the wrong thing. While this was happening, Lexi was completely ghosting me, and I just felt awful with everything combined already happening. While all of this was going on in my head, I was still sleeping with Nina. I didn't tell her anything that was going on in my head. However, I decided that I needed to be honest and come forward about what I did because I cared about our relationship and I really wanted to try and grow past it with her. So I sat her down and I said, "Hey, I need to be honest with you right now. You should know exactly what's going on." While things were developing between us, I saw Lexi. When I said that, Nina had a bunch of questions about it. Stuff like, "Saw? Wait, what do you mean? How did it happen? Why are you telling me this now?" And you know what? I answered them accordingly and honestly. She then pretty much said that she wasn't mad at me, but instead she was mad at the fact that I didn't tell her while we were sleeping together, meaning that my mind was on something else. And while I might have been in a heightened state, I was still present in that I wasn't in a psychotic episode or anything like that. She then told me, "Okay, I need to go in my car and rant on my phone." And it's here that I hugged her and I told her how I was sorry about how poorly I handled it, and that's when she just sent me off. Well, an hour later, she sent me a message saying, "I'm not interested in continuing anything with you. I'll have someone pass your clothes back to you." I also then received a message from Lexi saying we are no longer friends, which implied that she found out about the situation somehow. Yeah, narrator stepping in here. Who do you think told her, dude? What are you talking about? Is there anybody else frustrated with this dude right now? Is it just me? Please leave a comment down below. I want to hear what you have to say. Let's get back to it. But anyways, after they sent me that, I'm basically devastated. These were the two people closest to me. Both of them gone with one text message within an hour of each other. Lexi ended up calling me later, wanting some clarity and expressing that her message was sent out of impulse and that while she's mad at me right now, she thinks we could try to be friends after all of this in the future. However, as I talked to my family more about this whole situation. They kept telling me that I shouldn't keep Lexi around due to her part in all of this, which I agree with in the sense that I don't want anything further than maybe friends at this point. But what I'm worried about is my relationship with Nina. That message was written with finality all over the tone. She ended up blocking me on pretty much everything immediately after sending that message, and I'm currently receiving conflicting advice on whether to reach out later or accept the current situation as permanent. I have my doubts, but hearing that I still have a chance with her from my support system is what I really want to hear. So I'm really being met with a lot of conflicting feelings about how I should approach this situation. So seriously, what would you do if you were in my shoes? Because at this point, I don't know what to do. Oh my god, I hate the original poster. I'm just gonna say that outright. This guy sucks. Do you really not see that you're the problem here, dude? You slept with two best friends of each other and you're trying to sit there and be like, wow, I want to be friends with both of them. They mean so much to me. They're the closest people I know. It's like, yeah, I bet they are pretty close after you slept with them. Like, what are we talking about? First off, you're an idiot for being like, I don't want to be friends with you, but also, could you like do things with me? Like, if a lady says that to you, or anybody for that matter, that wouldn't just be a red flag. That'd be like the sun coming out at midnight and being like, it's morning. Like, no, dude, that is so sketchy. Which, by the way, everybody in the story sucks. They all jumped off the, oh, let's have any kind of logic and reason train a long time ago, dude. But I think the original poster in this situation takes the cake. They really thought they could sleep with Nina, then turn around and be like, well, I'm gonna see Lexi anyway, so I guess I'll go sleep with her too. Like, dude, that was the stupidest decision you could have made. So for you to not only be somehow surprised that Lexi found out about what happened and not realize that, yeah, Nina called her and said, dude, did he sleep with you too? Yeah, he slept with me literally like the night before. That's crazy, right? But also for you to sit there and be like, wow, I lost both of them. What am I gonna do? Should I call and contact Nina again? Like, dude, you need to like move on with your life and become a better person. I don't know how else to put it. Because you just about ruined a friendship that had been around since first grade. All because you're like wanting to be friends and close with these people. This isn't like a relationship, it's all physical. Like, I'm not crazy here or anything, right? Like, there's no future here. There's no situation where you could be friends with both of these people and still expect to like, what, sleep around with Lexi? Is that what you're planning? It seems like you got like an easy setup and you're like, oh man, I could sleep with these women all the time. Like, of course they're gonna be close to me. So bro, I don't know about anyone else, but this guy pisses me off. I think he's absolutely the problem. He is 100% the jerk in this scenario. I don't care what anybody thinks. But just in case someone out there has a contrary opinion, please leave a comment. I would absolutely love to hear what you have to say if there is some kind of dissenting opinion. Because everything here is a giant red flag that this guy not only like ignored and like pushed out of the way, but almost like embraced and say, yes, let's sleep together. We're such good friends. Which in and of itself is just stupid and just completely destructive. And the end result is exactly what you deserve in my opinion. Like, you don't deserve to have both of them, and I think you need to have like better morals and values moving forward. My parents have quite literally drained my earnings as a child actor, and now that I'm an adult, I'm kind of wondering if I should have a conversation about this, or if I should just let this go, because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so as the title suggests, I worked as a child actor from the ages of 8 to 14 years of age, and still get small residual checks even to this day. Well, I'm now an adult, and recently my parents told me there were delinquent dues on my like union account for acting that had built up over about 5 years, which is something, by the way, that I had not been aware of. After paying those off, I was finally able to access my account and see my cumulative earnings from that time, and I was honestly surprised by how high the total was. That led me to go back through old bank statements, and I realized that roughly 94% of those earnings had been spent before I ever had access to my own bank account. About 15% of it was set aside in a Coogan savings account, which, by the way, I couldn't even touch it until I was like 18 years old, which I didn't have access until after college. But now I'm trying to figure out how to feel about all of this. I understand that a portion of the money likely went towards my career, meaning like acting classes, transportation to gigs and auditions, etc. But it doesn't seem like those expenses would come even close to what was spent. And as I navigate supporting myself with my job, rent, and student loans, it's really frustrating to think that I could have felt a lot more secure if that money had been saved or even just invested. I have a good relationship with my parents and I don't want to blow up anything. If anything, I'm really just looking for clarity and if it's worth a conversation. Any advice on approaching a conversation with my parents about this topic would be greatly appreciated because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, this definitely seems like your parents said, oh, our child is making money as an actor. Let's take all of it and use all of it for whatever we need. Because that's exactly what it seems like is going on right now. Like, this seems incredibly sketchy in my opinion. Because dude, if your cumulative earnings was really as big as you're describing, or even as high as you thought it would be, and not even some of it is like left over for you, that in my opinion is super toxic. Like, I really don't think your parents had any business taking from that. And the fact that they did is just really uncalled for. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be having a conversation about this. I would go to them and be like, hey, I totally understand that I had stuff that like, I don't know, costs money when it comes to like classes and all this other stuff. And sure, I get it. Like transportation costs money and that probably was expensive. But did all of my money go away? Like where's the rest of it? It'd be really nice to have some of that right now. Like why didn't you invest it? Like for me, I would really want to know exactly where it went. And I would not be satisfied until I got that information. Like seriously, this is some really sketchy money and you deserve to have that in your adulthood. So yes, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would start gathering information right now. I would just start like, I don't know, gathering everything I know about this and everything I have an idea about it, and maybe just have a conversation and see if something is happening. Because who knows, maybe the money really is in a separate account and like maybe they did invest it or something like that. Like who knows, maybe there is something there that you can hang on to and actually have. So hopefully that is the case and hopefully this gets worked out, because I would be so pissed if this was me. I would really want answers, and personally I think that's something you're definitely entitled to. My wife's toxic family cyberbullied me for years without me knowing exactly who was doing it. But now it's coming out that my wife not only knew about this, but she also chose to keep this information away from me, despite the fact that I was going through one of the worst mental health crises I've ever gone through in my life. And now I'm honestly feeling so betrayed that I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my marriage is in a really bad spot after a deep breach of trust. And honestly, I just don't know how to fix things. For some context, we've been together for 7 years and married for 5. And between us, we have a 2-year-old son. We met at a convention and I thought her cosplay was amazing. I struck up a conversation and the rest is history. She is the most loving, unselfish, and decent person I've ever met. Now, our relationship was never without its challenges, and our biggest obstacle was her family. My presence was unwelcome. They are very close-knit, and if one doesn't accept you, then you're just not going to get far. There are a few family members who broke away from the pack, but no one hardly acknowledges them. They are no contact and the black sheep of the family. I didn't know how my wife's family was, but I did know family was extremely important to her. Her whole upbringing was based on family, so I tried everything in my power to make it work, but they didn't really put up with me until our son came along. Between our wedding planning to shortly before the wedding, I was the target of some relentless and vicious cyberbullying. It got personal. Fake bad reviews polluted my business profile as well, and it cost me some potential clients. I didn't know where it came from or why. I couldn't find a solution. I would report and it would take a while for anything to be done, or there would be more accounts coming out for another round. The whole thing impacted my life and my mental health, and it honestly just took a toll. Now, my wife was incredibly supportive. She was my rock and my best friend. I loved her even more for her care and how she held me down. But then the trolling and everything just completely stopped. Now, I wanted nothing more than to move on. I put it all behind me until the other day when my wife confessed that her family was behind all of this. Now, I didn't believe her at first, but she was serious and showed me proof in their family group chat. And it seriously felt like I was right back there again. They were gloating and justifying themselves, saying stuff like, some people gotta learn the hard way. And they would say, if he wants to join the fold, here's his initiation. I knew I wasn't their favorite person, but I never realized they hated me and would go to such extremes. I then asked my wife when she found out about this and if she was a part of it. And she swore that she wasn't and that she would never do anything like that to me. She claimed she didn't initially know it was her family until a few months before our wedding. Apparently, one of my sister-in-laws left a profile up on her phone and my wife saw it. She then confronted her family and made them stop. Now, I asked her why she was telling me everything now, and she said it was weighing on her, and she had opened up to her eldest sister, one of the family's black sheep, and she threatened to tell me the truth if my wife didn't. But nothing my wife said made it better. She knew for years what her family did and still hid it from me. She kept everything quiet, and it honestly hurts more coming from her because she knew firsthand of my pain. Well, after all that, I was pretty numb. My wife was anxious and kept pushing for me to say something, but I told her that there wasn't anything that she could say right now that would make it okay. What she did was no better than her family. They made my life a living nightmare, and her first instinct was to cover for them. She then started crying and begged me to understand. She said it wasn't like that and that she was trying to make things right with as little damage as possible and mend relationships. But I wasn't very receptive to her. She just wasn't reaching me. I couldn't help her or myself. I told her I needed some time to clear my head, but she was against it. She said we could work through this together, but I was was firm on space, but space isn't a request that she respected. I'm trying really hard to understand her side, and I'm trying to move past it, but I feel so betrayed. I trusted her more than anyone. I mean, I'm my most vulnerable with her. I kept opening up to her about the incident even after she knew the truth. She encouraged me to let it go and not allow it to have any claim on me. And I thought she had my best interests in mind, but now I just see it as her attempt to protect her family yet again. I haven't confronted anyone involved, and honestly, I don't think that they're worth it. But I've made it clear that they're no longer allowed to see our son until further notice. And now I'm getting text messages about how I'm depriving my child of grandparents and aunts over past family spats. One of the hardest parts is the distance from my wife. She's my best friend and partner in every single way. And now we're mostly only communicating about our son and other household necessities. She's hurt by my rejection and she's been crying often. And I don't know if I'm being unfair to her. I hate all of this. I want to make our marriage work, but I'm questioning our relationship up until now. I'm just feeling really lost and I honestly don't know what to do. Dude, if this happened to me, I would be so betrayed it is not even funny. Like seriously, if you want to get under my skin and make me never trust you ever again, just do something like this. Like this is a one-way ticket to me being like, oh yeah, I want nothing to do with you. Obviously, there's a lot of nuance here because this is your wife we're talking about, and you guys have a kid between the two of you, so it's not as easy as like cutting her off or anything like that. So I can't say much on the end of like what you should or shouldn't do with your marriage, but I can say this. If someone actively knew I was being cyberbullied and they knew who was doing it and they still didn't tell me, but instead decided to cover it up by being like, hey guys, stop that, and then only tell me about it years after the fact, all because their sister basically made them do it, like if that happened to me, I would be so offended it's not even funny. My trust in that person would go out the window and I would just not believe anything that they're saying. So I guess all of that's to say that you definitely have your work cut out for you if you want this to work, because what your wife did to you as well as what her family did to you, in my opinion, is unacceptable and not something that can ever be excused. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for going back on my promise to help out my sister pay for her wedding when she picked a day that honestly really broke my heart? Because right now I'm being called a jerk and I just don't know what to do. Here's how it went down. I'm a 28-year-old male and I have an older sister who we will call Tina for the sake of the story. When I was 15, I met a girl in the same grade who we will call May, and May and I clicked instantly, and we started dating a few weeks afterwards. May and I dated through the rest of high school and college, and I asked her to marry me when we were 22 years old. We got married at 23 and had our son at 24. Now, May unexpectedly passed away in a car accident when our son was 2 years old, so about 2 years ago. I'm still devastated, and genuinely, I just don't think I'll ever date or get married again. And my whole family really liked May, and we all took her loss incredibly hard. That is, except for Tina. Tina didn't have a lot of luck with boyfriends during high school or college. Until she met someone we will call Daniel, she had never even been on a date. I know she felt really jealous that I got married and started a life first, but other than that, we were warm with each other. She was polite and respectful at May's funeral, and I thought she had gotten past the whole jealousy thing, but apparently not. Tina and Daniel started dating about 6 months after May had passed away, and I was really happy for her. They got engaged 4 months ago, and they're now planning their wedding for the summer of 2026. When they first got engaged, Tina asked me if I would be willing to help cover some of the cost, and despite raising my son alone, I work a good job and make a lot more than Tina or Daniel, and I really wanted my sister to be happy, so I just said yes. Well, they just revealed their wedding date, and yes, you guessed it. Tina and Daniel are planning to get married on the same day that May and I were married. She gave me a heads up by texting me last week and letting me know. Now, when I saw this, I asked her if she was mental, and also, why would she do this? She just said it was the date that they liked and that they had every right to pick it. Her and I went back and forth for a few days, where I kind of begged her to reconsider, but she just wouldn't do it. In fact, she posted it on Facebook yesterday. I then sent her a text basically saying that yeah, she was in the right to pick the date, but I said that I would not be in attendance or contribute financially. And when I said this, she freaked out, repeatedly calling and texting me. She called our mother, who started to call and text me, and word spreads fast in the family, so now everybody knows. And it seems like the family is split in 3 ways. Half the family says that I'm in the right, and Tina says that I'm being a jerk, both for not coming and for not paying. And there are actually some cousins supporting her. My mom says that I don't have to go, but I should keep good on my promise. Honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm in the right, but I seriously need some objective opinions because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, your sister is absolutely doing that on purpose. I seriously just want to say that first and foremost because this is some crazy behavior. Your sister knows this is your wedding anniversary for your dead wife, and she's doing this to get back at you for something that you didn't even do. Like, this really is some kind of like weird one-sided jealousy that just doesn't make any sense, and it honestly is just cruel and unusual usual. So yeah, if she wants to have this wedding on this day and be like, oh, we just picked it because we liked it, while ignoring the fact that this is the day you and your wife got married, you know, the wife that died in an accident, then go for it, but that doesn't mean you have to support her in any way, shape, or form. So no, you're not the jerk here, because what she's doing seems really targeted, and I don't blame you for being pissed off. Did I overreact by snapping at an old man after he got pushy trying to get in a pool around my 2-year-old child? Because right now, I'm kind of regretting the way I handled this, and I don't know if I did anything wrong. Here's how it happened. Okay, so we were at my 2-year-old child's survival swim lessons. Now, the lesson is tough for them because they're learning to swim and float on their own. There is a lot of crying involved, and at the end, we come to the edge of the pool to check in with the instructor, and the kids lay on the towel at the pool's edge to kind of decompress and to spit up any water that they may have swallowed. The area of the pool where the lessons are being held is marked off with lane lines, and it's just meant for these one-on-one swim lessons. As today's lesson ends, the instructor has my partner and myself meet our child at the edge of the pool by the ladder. As we're setting up the towel and going to get our child out of the pool, an old man in his 70s starts kind of jostling past us saying, "Excuse me," and trying to get to the ladder our child is currently climbing up. He's sort of aggressively pushing past us and cutting us off as we are literally trying to get our child. Again, the kids are upset and crying after these lessons a lot of the time, and our child is getting out pretty slowly. The old man keeps aggressively saying "excuse me" and starts trying to push past our 2-year-old to get to the ladder. Now at this point, I have my hand on my child's shoulder to help usher them out of the pool and onto the towel, and we're at the edge of the pool and my child is at the top of the ladder. Well, this old man grabs my hand off my child and pushes it, which nudges my child, by the way, and again says "excuse me," and at this point I look up at him and I say, "Oh, you can wait a second or I can push you in." The old man then says, whoa, I asked politely." But I said to him, "You grab my hand off my child. Don't ever do that again." At this point, my wife ushers me away, and I know I could have definitely handled this way better, but I am still fuming about this. So did I overreact? I mean, was my response justified? Because right now, I don't know if I'm in the wrong. Oh man, this is not one of those situations where you did anything wrong. That old guy was being pushy around a child. Like, dude, there is no excuse for that. So no, you definitely did not overreact. Today, I messed up by oversharing at a work event, resulting in human resources saying that I need to be more professional at work parties. And now I'm honestly so embarrassed that I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I started this job about 2 months ago, so I am very new. The office is very small, consists of about 10 people, and they have an annual party. I am currently going through a very rough breakup, and I think it might be important as well to add in that I'm 22 years old, and this is my first corporate job. I showed up to work every day, I would not bring my problems into work, and I don't mention anything to anyone. Well, that is, except for at my work party. I was really upset, and there's 2 girls working with me, and I told them about my breakup, and they were very empathetic, and they went through the same stuff. However, when our male colleagues got involved, they overheard me talking, and they feigned sympathy, and asked me more questions about it, to which stupid me, with 2 glasses of wine, probably said more than I should have. I said I'm very upset that I loved him, and all this other stuff. Anyways, I basically just spoke about my ex-boyfriend pretty much the entire time, and my manager, who is human resources of my company, was not there. However, now, 3 weeks after the party, she's finally back in the office, and she said to me that she regrets to have to say this, but I need to be more professional at work events. And this just felt so embarrassing. I told her that I'm very surprised since, you know, I spoke to the girls, and it's the men that were asking me more questions. But she told me that it was actually the male colleagues who approached her and told her that they are concerned about me. I told her that I'm very embarrassed and that I don't think I overstepped in the things that I said, but she rehearsed to me that this was not an HR meeting. It's just simply that she wants to warn me to not share too much, especially to the male colleagues. She was very sweet about it and said that she was embarrassed to bring it up to me herself because she's been in the same situation, and this situation has happened to a lot of the girls at work, but ultimately she just told me that I need to be careful. And honestly, I'm so embarrassed. I know I overshared too much, but it didn't help that all of them seemed genuinely curious and sympathetic, and now they're just going straight to my manager about it. What should I do? Oh man, this is so stupid. First of all, it seems like the guys did that on purpose because you were just a little bit tipsy and obviously very upset. Because like, dude, you were asking her, not the other way around. These guys were literally going up to you and be like, "Hey, what's going on? What's wrong? Tell me more about your problems." And then for them to turn around and be like, "Oh yeah, this new girl's being really toxic and weird. She's sharing so much about her life. I can't believe it." Like, that's so annoying and stupid. Like, why would you do that? So honestly, if I was in your shoes, I would never trust these people ever again. I would never tell them anything about about myself and I would just genuinely be like, okay, we're gonna keep this at work and we're gonna keep this at home. And I will never mix these two together ever again because clearly you have some male colleagues who just absolutely suck. And that is absolutely not your fault, but instead it definitely is theirs. Am I the jerk for breaking up with my boyfriend because of his ex? As she is literally all over him all the time and constantly making me uncomfortable in ways that are completely inappropriate. Because right now I'm honestly not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. So I've been dating a guy for a little over a year and we became boyfriend and girlfriend in February of this year, but there's always been one consistent issue, his ex-girlfriend of 6 months. The first time I met her was at our first date. She and her family were at the same restaurant and she brought her 3 children to the table that we were eating at. My partner also met her parents during this date. I laughed it off as it was incredibly awkward and an unlucky first date. He then tells me that she called him crying a few days later and he actually met up with her and she tried to come on to him and he rejected her. She also texted him a few times. One time it was a photo of her in her PJs. I'm sure you know the kind where it has no face in it, but you can definitely see her chest. And she also stopped his mom in a supermarket to chat one time. Now, throughout all of this, my boyfriend claims that she is a really nice person deep down, and they've been friends for years before they dated. I told him not to block her as they have friends in common, and I didn't want to make a big deal about it or seem jealous, but it only got worse. I started to get fed up and I said that if she was your friend, she would respect our relationship. She also told him that she had been contacting him because she didn't think that we were that serious. And it's like, are you kidding me right now? It got to the point where we hashed things out and she apologized and everything seemed fine. Well, ever since that incident, she texted him late one night telling him he needs to get over her, which made me see red. I ended up calling her and I shouted at her and told her how fake and immature she was being, considering she was older than me. I really lost my temper and my boyfriend said it was hot, which I completely hated. I resented my partner for putting me in that position where I lost my cool. But this is not all that went down. It was another ridiculous situation that felt like some kind of Love Island triangle. Me and my boyfriend are at an engagement party for his best friend, and she turned up alone, by the way, and proceeded to talk to my boyfriend. He said he tried to ignore her, but at one point told my boyfriend that she had been on a date recently, and the guy reminded her of him. I hoped he would have just ignored her or told her that she was being inappropriate, but he said something along the lines of, well, it won't ever be me. And he said this while I was in the next room. At this point, I'm just so done with this drama. This has been a consistent issue that has been unresolved throughout us dating, and a part of me feels like he enjoyed the attention and has been unfaithful in some way. So honestly, would I be the jerk if I broke up with my boyfriend because of his ex? Because right now I'm seriously frustrated. Now, before I give any of my responses here, I think the original poster did the right thing because she updates us by saying that she broke up with her boyfriend. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad you did that because that's exactly what I would have done if I was in your shoes. Like seriously, think about it for a second. This is some silly stuff going on, like honestly. Your boyfriend is literally playing both sides of the fence, dude. He's doing very little to avoid his ex-girlfriend while not even pretending like he's in a relationship with you. And that is so dumb. Like seriously, it's time to cut her off and move on. And because he can't do that, I honestly don't blame you for breaking up with him because in my opinion, that really was the right thing to do. My toxic boss tries to gaslight me into believing that all of my coworkers hate me, treating me like garbage and making my life a living nightmare. So I decide to get some petty revenge by literally throwing a party while he went away on vacation, giving him a taste of his own medicine of what it's like to feel left out. Here's how I did it. I'm an 18-year-old female and I work as a custodian for an elementary school. I recently just graduated from high school this past May, and I got hired for this job at the beginning of my senior year. At the start of my employment, things were going good. My boss, the head custodian of the school, was very nice to me, and it seemed like we were going to get along well, but it wasn't until January of this year when things really took a turn. I'm not sure why, but my boss totally flipped on me and started to treat me like garbage. He constantly berated me, accused me of not doing any work during my shift, which was completely not true, gaslit me into believing all the other staff in the building hated me, which was also not true, told me to get over it when I asked for time off to grieve over a pet who suddenly passed, and much, much more. He even went as far as trying to prove I was a horrible employee to the principal of the school in some kind of attempt to get me fired, but she thankfully dismissed his claims and sided with me since he had no real evidence. It's a long story that probably deserves its own separate post, but with all this being said, the way he treated me, among other things not related to work, really started to take a toll on my mental health throughout the latter half of my senior year. My grades started to slip and I got really depressed rest, but I refused to quit due to familial pressure, needing the money for college, and the flexible hours the job offered me. Fast forward to now, and I'm still working with this absolute piece of garbage over the summer. And before anybody says anything, yes, I am hoping to transfer to a different custodial position at a different school with hopefully a better work environment, but as of right now, that hasn't happened yet. Now, I don't know why, but since summer started, he has flipped back to being Mr. Nice Guy and suddenly wants to erase everything that's happened between us and act like we're best friends, which I'm absolutely not having at all. He hasn't even apologized. It pisses me off so much, but I just try to keep calm. Anyways, with that in mind, it's now time for some very petty revenge. Now, I really love to bake, and I've wanted to bake something for my coworkers for a while now. My coworkers are all really nice to me, and I felt they deserved a little treat for all that they do. However, if I brought a treat into work, I would have to share it with my boss too, which really bothered me. But luckily for me, this week he was going on a camping trip with his family, so this was my time to strike. I picked one of the days my boss was gone, and I told myself I was going to make a dessert and bring it into work with me then. But that's not all, because I decided to take it a step further. The day before I was going to bring in a treat, I sent a text message in our group chat, a group chat with my boss in it. I informed everyone on the chat that I was planning on bringing in a dessert the next day, and if any of them wanted to bring something in as well, they are free to do so. Well, needless to say, my coworkers delivered, and everybody brought something, meaning that I had coordinated a giant dessert party. I also picked the one day of the week that teachers and other staff were allowed to be in the building, so I got to share my baking with just about everybody who works at the school except for my boss. Now, the best part is that since he's camping somewhere with no cell service, he didn't see the messages coordinating until he got back. So when he leaves his camping trip, he's gonna see that everybody had a party without him. He should be back to work from his camping trip in 2 days, so we will see if he brings it up then, but I honestly think this was a complete success. Dude, I love this so much, especially for a coworker who is a piece of garbage, and it sounds like your boss absolutely fits the bill. I hate the kind of people who act like that, where they're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make it seem like everybody hates you, and then try to turn around and be like, oh, we're just gonna treat that like water under the bridge. And that is so frustrating, like seriously, get a life. It's a little too late to try and act like you're extending an olive branch of some kind, dude. Like, you're a complete piece of garbage and I want nothing to do with you. And for the sake of the original poster, I hope you get transferred way sooner than later, because this does not sound fun. So good for you for throwing that party, because this guy deserves to not be a part of it, because he literally tried to ostracize you from everybody else, and I think it's time that he got a taste of his own medicine. My psycho boss literally tries to get me in trouble by claiming that I'm posting things on social media that shouldn't be posted about the company. So I decided to get some revenge by literally turning the script against him, revealing something that he said on social media about the company we work for that's way worse than anything I even attempted to imply, resulting in my supervisor having a meltdown that I've honestly never seen before from anybody in my life. Here's how it happened. Okay, to start things out, many years ago, I worked for a company that had a software as a service product, but my team was the on-premise team that would install it on customer servers who paid extra for the service. While other teams had multiple other teams supporting them, we were basically on our own to make this product into something portable that could be installed at customer sites. So one afternoon on a particularly hard crunch, my coworker and I have a pizza delivered. It was an anchovy, jalapeno, mushrooms, and pepperoni pizza, something only a couple of Sicilians would love. It was going to be a 12-hour day, so we decided to eat lunch at our desk while we hunkered down. There was one slice left and my coworker gave it to me, so I wrapped it up and I put it on a plate for my 5 p.m. snack time. Well, 5 o'clock rolls around and it's just completely gone. I look in the trash and there it was with a single bite out of it. I came back later at around 6 o'clock or so, because we were still in crunch mode, and noticed that my coworker had left a note on her juicer. Apparently, people had been using it and not washing it. I was kind of fed up with people getting into my coworker's stuff, so I wrote a note and I left it on her juicer. And I did this after thoroughly washing it because some other idiot decided to leave it dirty. Well, the next day, the entire office was abuzz when I walked in. People walking up to me, giving me high fives, and generally speaking, people were in a good mood for me standing up, except for my supervisor. Now, prior to him becoming supervisor, he was the team lead, but would butt heads with anyone who dared to show any promise of talent. Upon seeing people cheering me on the written note that I had left, I took a picture and I decided to put it on Facebook. And for reference, the original poster basically left like a scathing note that said, hey, you gotta clean up after yourself because this is completely unprofessional. The note's really clever and there's lots of like play on words, and at the bottom of the note, people wrote stuff like priceless or preach and stuff like that. Well, a few days later, my supervisor comes up to me stating that Human Resources is bringing me in to sign some kind of form, all because I broke company's social media policy. I said to him, what do you mean? This is just a stupid note about someone stealing my pizza. It was funny. But my supervisor said, someone on social media will read your note and think that our company has pizza thieves. Now, I knew he was behind it, so later that night, I looked on his Facebook page and I came across a post of his from 2 weeks earlier. It was him literally saying, "I hate nepotism in my company." And it was right there that I had this idiot right in my sights, which is exactly where my petty revenge comes into play. Human Resources brought us both into our meeting and he went on and on about what a bad person I was and how he had all this evidence of that and my pizza note. Well, the entire time in my hand, I held a manila folder. I didn't lean on with what was in the manila folder, but I remained silent the entire time while my supervisor laid his case out to Human Resources. "And that's why they need to be put on a performance improvement plan." And he said this, closing his case with a smug, satisfied look on his face. Human Resources then asked me if I had anything I wanted to say, and I said to them, "Oh, I sure do," taking the printout of the screenshot I took, complete with a timestamp and all. I say to them, "Okay, so here's a post that this guy did 2 weeks ago, saying there's too much nepotism at our company. Personally, I think that's a lot more damaging to the company's reputation than me complaining that someone stole a slice of pizza out of the fridge. It simply wouldn't be fair if I'm punished and he's not punished for saying something way worse on social media. So honestly, we should both be getting in trouble in this situation." When I said all this, his face turned ghastly white. He started to stammer, saying that this was when he worked at IBM instead of here. Well, I just looked at the Human Resources lady and I said, "Look at the timestamp. This was 2 weeks ago. I could pull up his profile on my phone. This wasn't about IBM." Well, this entitled supervisor then said, "You're always such a big baby. You can't have things your way." To which he then went on a 5-minute tirade calling me names. But the entire time I just stayed silent and I looked at him. I weaponized calm. And Human Resources was the one to finally interrupt him. She said, "Look, why don't I finish talking with the original poster and you and I can talk later on." He then said as he slammed the door out of her office, "This isn't the last of this." Once he left, the Human Resources lady and I talked for a bit very calmly. She told me I did a great job and all things considered, she wouldn't be recommending me for a performance improvement plan for this incident. Fast forward and a few months later, I ended up finding a new job because honestly, that place really sucked. And I did not want to put up with these people for another minute. Dude, I am so glad you got out of there because holy crap, this place sounds awful. First of all, your supervisor sounds like a psychopath. And secondly, it really does seem like he was trying to get you in trouble for something so stupid. Like imagine being a supervisor and being like, "Oh wow, you finally did something wrong. I can finally get you in trouble the way that I've always wanted to." It's like, dude, get a life. Seriously, get a life. You have no life. And the fact that you're acting this way is like alarming and really stupid. So I'm honestly so glad that you got back at this guy with the same crap he was trying to throw your way. And I love the fact that because you caught him in his own words and basically tricked him at his own game, he lost his mind. Like he didn't know how to handle that for a second. And that, in my opinion, makes this entire situation all the much sweeter. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amIthejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not forgiving my stepsister after she invited my monster of a stepfather to her wedding instead of bringing me along like I was hoping for? Because even after all these years, I still hold a grudge against what happened, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm the one at fault. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, there are some things I want to get out of the way first. My stepsister is the daughter of my stepfather, who married my mother when I was 9 years old, and at the time, they were together for 2 years prior already. At age 13, my stepfather mistreated me and continued to do so until I was 16. And this is one of those things where you kind of have to connect the dots to understand what's really going on here, but apparently to the original poster, it was extensive and horrifying. She goes on to say, "I told my mom when I was 17, and she immediately filed a police report." Well, cut to that Christmas, and my stepsister drops the news that she is engaged. And we're thinking to ourselves, okay, this is fantastic, right? I was excited for her, really. And imagine my surprise when one day my little sisters and mom come home in bride squad attire, all matching. I then ask where mine is, and my mom pulls me aside to tell me not only am I not in the bride squad, but I'm not even invited to the wedding. And yes, at this point, those of us older than the age of 18 knew about what happened, including my stepsister. So she knowingly invited her father instead of me to her wedding, where the entire family would be, and didn't even tell me herself. My mom had to break it to me, and only because I asked about it. So of course I was hurt. It felt like a betrayal after everything her father did to me. I mean, he almost ruined my life. I've since blocked her on everything as I'm not even remotely ready to talk to her, and some people on my mom's side agrees with that, but my mom herself and some closer siblings all think that I'm overreacting. The nail in the coffin was hammered in more because as of last year, my stepfather was sent to prison. At the hearing, he pled guilty, and they took him away while me and my stepsister, with a couple of family friends present, watched all of it going down. My stepsister tried to console me and hug me, to which I refused and pulled away. Even though this whole situation had been a good couple of years, it was still a sore spot. And for reference, I was 23 at the the time of him going to prison since this happened last year. Now she's mad at me because she thinks I'm overreacting and being vindictive, but I refuse to forgive her. My mom also thinks I'm being too mean because at the end of the day, my stepsister's decision was a hard one, and that ultimately this was her father. But I still think it's wild that she chose a monster over her own sister, regardless of the relation, especially because I would have never made that decision. I mean, I'm not dumb. I understand why she made that decision. I just think it was the wrong one to do. So did I overreact in this whole scenario, or am I at fault in some kind of way? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, this whole situation is so messed up, and to the original poster, I'm so sorry this happened to you. Like seriously, your stepdad's a monster through and through, and there's no good excuse. And also, I'm so sorry that your stepsister decided to kick you out of the wedding instead of her dad. Like seriously, she knew about this and everybody knew about it who was over the age of 18. Like this is some serious stuff that actually happened and she decided to ignore it. And this is so much more than, oh, he just made some mistakes, we're gonna move past that. Like I'm sure you can probably connect the dots, and hopefully you can, about what really happened between the original poster and the stepdad, but it's not good stuff. It really is some sketchy stuff that they did not deserve. So I can't imagine anyone in their right mind still sticking by their father after doing stuff like that, especially to a kid no less. Like come on, man. So no, you didn't overreact, and honestly, I would never forgive my stepsister if I was in this scenario, because she made a crappy choice at your expense, and that is not your fault in the slightest. An entitled Karen and her daughter literally delay my plane by over 20 minutes simply because they demanded to put their bags in the overhead compartments that were completely full. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was on my way home from a bachelorette party across the country last year, and I had a layover before my flight to my final destination. Now, thankfully, my husband had upgraded my boarding group before my trip, so I would be able to get my carry-on in the overhead compartment and not have to gate check and wait for my luggage. I was in the first or second boarding group. Before my group was called, the woman at the desk said over the loudspeaker that the flight was completely booked, and they were asking for volunteers to gate check their bags. They called my group and I boarded the plane. When I put my carry-on in the overhead compartment above my row, I noticed two other carry-ons that looked like they belonged to the crew. When I added my bag, it filled the compartment completely. So I sat down, and eventually the flight attendants came around and closed the full compartments, including the one above me. As more groups board the plane, the flight attendants repeatedly made announcements that the closed overhead compartments are full and to find another compartment. As the last group is boarding, the flight attendants are still making announcements that the compartments that are closed are full. And at this point, I literally couldn't see any other open compartments on the airplane. Two women, who I can only assume is a mother and an adult daughter, make their way to my row. The older woman opens up the overhead compartment above me and lets out a scoff when she sees that it's full. She says something like, "Oh, our bags need to go here." And she then proceeds to open the overhead compartment above the row across from me and scoffs again when she realizes that it's also full. And I believe she opened like one more before the flight attendant came by and told her that the compartments that are closed are completely full. The flight attendant then has to close all the compartments this woman opened up. Well, at this point, the woman then gets into an aggressive conversation with the flight attendant about needing to put her bags above her seat. But the flight attendant said that that compartment is full and she would need to find another compartment somewhere on the plane. Her daughter then goes down the aisle looking for another compartment, and the flight attendant turns around to help someone else. But this is where things get really crazy. The woman then opens the compartment above my seat and takes my bag out and puts it in the aisle. The flight attendant comes back and immediately said, "You can't do that, ma'am. You need to find another place for your bag." The woman then explains that she needs to put her bags above her seat because she has a tight connection, and she has to make her way to the international terminal when we land. Now at this point, I'm thinking this lady's a complete idiot. First of all, she could have paid $30 to upgrade her boarding pass like I had done, just to be able to get her carry-on in the cabin. Secondly, she probably should have booked an earlier flight so that she could actually make her connection. And the airport we're flying to is a big airport. They're gonna need to run to the international terminal just to make their flight. At this point, her daughter then approaches and says that there's no other open compartments on the plane. The flight attendant then says that if there are no other compartments, then they will need to gate check their bags. She then puts my bag back in the overhead compartment and closes it again. Eventually, another flight attendant approaches and joins the gate check discussion. They're discussing the logistics of getting their bags to their final destination, as well as the forms they need to fill out and all that jazz. But this woman keeps going back to the fact that she cannot gate check her bags. I swear, she says it like 5 times, and the flight attendants keep telling her that there's no room in the cabin. Like at this point, they're just talking in circles. Between all the back and forth and bringing forms and more staff into this debacle, they delay the flight by like 20 minutes. Eventually, they had to gate check their bags, as well as fill out some forms so that their bags could make it to their final destination. Anyways, I have to sit next to this crazy lady and her daughter for the entire entire flight. She's coughing, she's sneezing, and has a runny nose, and is basically just spewing all over the place. I mean, thank God I had a mask and wipes, because I managed to not get sick. Before we land, the pilot makes an announcement that we have a few individuals who have tight connections, and that we need to let them get off the plane first. He asked these individuals to raise their hands so the rest of us would know who needs to get off first. But once we land, it is a free-for-all. Everyone who can get up does, and I'm just laughing thinking there's no way these entitled women are making their flight, because even if they do, their bags definitely won't. Oh man, imagine being so entitled and stupid that you literally can't understand that, hey, you gotta gate check your bag. If they'd simply done that from the beginning when they said, oh yeah, all the compartments are full, then they probably would have made it to the airport much sooner. Instead, you're delaying everybody by what, 20 minutes, all because you're just stubborn? Like, that's some weird logic, as if you're gonna somehow convince someone around you to give up their bag just so you can put it in the overhead compartment. Because also, I think the original poster has a really good point. If they have a tight connection, they should have scheduled for an earlier flight, and that is honestly their fault and nobody else's. An entitled Karen demands that I reopen my office that I just closed because she had a question for me that would only take 1 minute. But because I knew this woman was completely out of her mind lying to me, I decided to shut that crap down right then and there, knowing that she would chew my ear off for probably over an hour if I decided to entertain any of that garbage. Here's what happened. Years ago, I worked in a city-run adult education program, which had its main office in a portable classroom behind an elementary school. So for once in my working life, I had the perk of being able to park literally right outside the office door instead of a parking garage or anything like that. The downside of this, of course, is that when our students came or left, they could easily see where I parked. While there were a large number of instructors, they were mostly scattered at different schools and other places around the city, so there were only a handful of us in the office itself. On one particular day, I ended up closing alone. I had a supervisor who was almost never around, who, by the way, is absolutely worthy of an entitled person post herself, and the secretary had left early for an appointment. And that was no problem. Luckily, it was a relatively quiet afternoon. A few minutes past 4 o'clock p.m., I turned off the lights and I locked all the doors and I headed out to my car, which, as I mentioned, was parked literally just a few yards outside the front door. Well, suddenly a car rushes up into the lot. The driver comes up behind me, rolls the window down, and asks me if the office is closed. I look and I see this woman and I say, yeah, I'm sorry. We close at 4 o'clock every day, but we'll open again tomorrow at 8 o'clock. But when I said this woman literally refused to accept this. She started to say, but I work all day, and there's no way I can make it here between those hours, and you're just outside. Can't you please just open the office again? I promise what I need will take just a minute. And yeah, we've all heard the minute line before, because trust me, it never is. And listen, I'm totally sympathetic for having to deal with offices' specific hours. I myself have been living with a serious chronic illness for many years, so I'm no stranger to doctor's offices whose last visits are at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever, and you have to finagle stuff at your workplace in order to make it happen. But guess what? The hours are the hours, and it's not the lowest staff member's responsibility to stay overtime without compensation for you. Now, as the woman was not backing down, and I was absolutely not going to entertain any of this ridiculousness, I just repeated that no, we are closed, and that she can come back either tomorrow or else she can call a supervisor or something like that. Now, as I was standing right outside my car, I was lucky, because after I reiterated the word no, I just got inside and I drove away. I could have tried to reason with this woman, asking her if she would be willing to stay late at her own workplace for free, but life had already taught me by that point that you just can't reason with people like that. She'll try to justify it by saying, oh, but it's just this little minute, what's the big deal? Meaning that sometimes you just have to shut it down before any of it starts up. Dude, the original poster is so right. Anytime a customer or a client or a patient or whoever says, oh, it'll just be a minute, you can bet it's going to be like 30 to 40 minutes, if that. They're going to chew your ear off with all their problems, and it's never going to be a quick fix. And that is honestly obnoxious. Like, I really cannot stand when people act like that. I've run into way too many people like that, and it's clearly caused some kind of PTSD, but like, dude, I can't stand that for a second. It is like my least favorite activity from a customer, and it drives me up a wall. So good for you for shutting this down and learning from what was my mistake back in the day, because I've run into a few people who literally I cared way too much, and it usually ends up with me being at the office for like an hour more than I need to be, which overall, from experience, it only leads to trouble, and it's just not worth your time. Would I be the jerk for telling my mom that I am not willing to look after her adult child, who is my older sister, for the rest of my life? Because my sister is literally 2 years older than me and has never had a job, and yet I'm still expected to take care of her in the same way my narcissistic mom has taken care of her our entire lives. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm going to offend her or if I'm the jerk, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 21-year-old female, and I have one other sister who's 23, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Amy. Now, I love her dearly, but despite being older, she has a lot less life experience than I do. She's never had a job, whereas I've been working since I was 15 years old, and she stays inside playing video games all day. I make an effort to be social, but she still lives with our parents, whereas I moved out as soon as I could. Amy's always been my mother's favorite. Our mother has narcissistic tendencies, and while Amy cradles her, I have a habit of sticking up for myself, which obviously Mother Dearest didn't like. They have always spoiled her, like how she got a PS5 the same year I went without a school laptop because they couldn't afford both. I hate that in some ways it sort of made me resent my sister, even though it's not her fault, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Anyways, our grandmother passed away recently, and my mother decided that I was to move into her house and pay for all the bills and everything else while they sell theirs and go live the van lifestyle for a while. And trust me, this story would be about 10 times longer if I got into all of that, so I simply won't. They also said that my sister would come live with me when they're ready to go. Now, the issue isn't her living there. I do love Amy, and we've gotten along as adults, but the issue is that they're building a 10 grand art studio in the yard. They let her pick the room in the house that she wanted, along with everything else of our grandmothers. It didn't matter how much it meant to me. If she wanted it, she got it and all that, because they wanted her to be happy. Except for the fact that, oh, by the way, I'm paying all the bills, the rates, and getting nothing but what she lets me have. There's also the fact that I don't want to live in this town forever, or take care of my sister forever. I need to be able to have my own life, but our parent expects me to just, I don't know, take care of their kid because they don't want to anymore. And she can't even take care of herself because she's never bothered to get a job or go to university. I understand that my parents want their own lives too, but they're the ones who chose to have kids and not me. In my eyes, if you chose to be a parent, it's a lifelong commitment, even if the kids are adults. Like, sometimes things happen and you have to be prepared to look after them. Or at the very least, they should be telling Amy that she should be looking after herself. Now, I brought up the finance issues, and they just said they would put a trust in Amy's name to help with the house, which is fine, I guess, but they're still just spoiling her and not urging her to do something with her life. Amy makes a little more through art commissions, but not enough to live, and has some mental health issues that affects things. But I do too, and I'm still trying to figure my life out. I just don't know what to do. So, would I be the jerk if I told my mom I don't want to take care of my sister forever? Because right now I'm honestly super frustrated. Okay, I gotta be completely honest. No, you would not be the jerk in this scenario. Your mom's clearly taking advantage of you because you have your crap figured out, and this is totally not fair because Amy absolutely should have her life figured out as well. She's 2 years older and she should be getting a job. Like, dude, what's going on? You can't just stay inside and play video games all day and expect everyone else to take care of you. You've got to get up and do something with your life. This is literally unacceptable in my opinion. And it doesn't help the fact that you're paying for everything, and yet your sister would be in this house just having whatever she wants. Like, dude, what's going on right now? This seems so backwards. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would probably not even move in, and I wouldn't even begin to pay the bills, because I don't think they'll ever come back from their van lifestyle ever again. You'll be saddled with all this like financial responsibility while your sister gets to live there scot-free and do literally nothing. And that doesn't sound fair to you at all, and honestly, it just really feels like a trap. My toxic, entitled coworker freaks out on me in a way I never expected after I tried to help him out by taking over some of his tables at our restaurant that he couldn't serve in a timely manner. He even went as far as taking the tips off of the tables that I helped him with, despite the fact that I literally did all the work for him, resulting in one of the biggest meltdowns I've ever seen in my life. Here's how it happened. Okay, so today was a really busy night, and on top of that, one of our coworkers got sick just before the evening shift started. That means that we were understaffed. Now, one of my coworkers had tables inside and also outside on the street. While I had just relatively small and easy to handle sections inside the restaurant, my coworker was so busy outside that he wasn't able to properly handle his tables inside. For the first table in his section, I had to do everything. I took the orders, I brought the drinks, the food, I talked with the guests, and I brought the refill, and then I even had to clean the whole dishes. And all this time, my coworker was nowhere to be seen. But he wanted to keep that table under his name, so I gave him the receipt copy once I went to cash the table in. At the end, I even had to clean the table, while my coworker did nothing but ended up taking the tip for himself. Like, this guy even went to complain later that I went to cash in on his table. So I straight up told him that if he wasn't able to handle his whole section, that he could just give me his tables inside and he could do the ones out on the street. Well, he denied my request in a bit of a rude manner and claimed that he could still manage this. Other people came to seat in that section, and he again just wasn't present. But at this point, I'd had enough of this. Why on earth should I do everything when he's just gonna take the tips at the end of it? So I put the new tables on my name, and when I did this, he went nuts and started screaming at me that I should leave his tables alone, to which I reminded him that nobody was there, and the boss wouldn't like the tables to wait 20 minutes minutes just to order a drink. Later in the night, a couple arrives and wants to sit on the street. So I clean the table, I bring the menu, and once again, I take the order. He then comes up to me and says to me, "Oh, just do the whole street yourself now." But here's the thing, I actually didn't even want to take that table for myself. I just wanted to help out a little. He goes inside and starts to make another big drama, complaining loudly about me in front of the boss and our colleagues. At the end of it, I had to do everything by myself outside on the street because he just didn't want it anymore. And I personally find this behavior wrong. It was busy, we were missing staff, and he just wants to insist doing everything just by himself. That would greatly slow down service and clients would start complaining. He even claimed that I should at least inform him when I take the orders from his tables, but I just don't find that right. He should have given me half of his section already at the start, since he was clearly unable to manage all of this. Plus, our first and only priority is to make sure the guests are satisfied. Now, I was expecting my manager to defend me, but he got quite shy over the situation, and instead he was telling him things like, "We are a team and we help each other out. Look, we are understaffed," and stuff like that. But he never told him in clear words that he was totally in the wrong. So honestly, what do you guys think about all of this? Because right now I'm still very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I want to echo what someone already said in the comments section, but your manager is spineless. This absolutely should have been addressed. This guy cannot handle all those tables and was acting like an idiot the entire time. You were literally just trying to help him out, and this guy tries to be like, "I can handle it myself, what are you doing?" And that's not fair because you literally were just trying to be a team player. And this guy has the audacity to come around and be like, "Oh, this is your fault." So next time if he ever does try to pull that crap, I would just let him burn to the ground. I would refuse to help him out, and when he does complain about it, because you know he will, just kindly remind him the last time you tried to help him out and he bit your head off. Because yeah, this is inappropriate behavior. This guy's getting pissed off because he can't handle all the orders in front of him, but somehow this is your fault for trying to help out. Like, that just doesn't make any sense. If I was waiting tables again and I had coworkers willing to help me out because I literally couldn't handle all the tables in front of me, I would be high-fiving them and be like, "Oh yeah, take the tips, take the tables, I really appreciate it." Because to do otherwise is so ungrateful. He's literally burned a bridge with the original poster for them ever helping him out again. And honestly, that's the way it should be, because his behavior is awful and it absolutely is not okay. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I got fired from my serving job at a restaurant I just started at, literally after my 4th training shift. And despite the fact that my trainer literally did nothing to train me on the job, and instead decided to chat with her friends the entire time, I was still reprimanded and written up for not doing my job right, leaving me wondering if I could have done a single thing differently. Here's what happened. I want to start off by saying that I have no serving experience. I told the manager this in our interview, and she said that was a good thing, because some people with serving experience do things the way their old job did it. Anyways, I sent my availability for the next 2 weeks, and then I received the message. It said the following: "As we approach our busiest season of the year, it's crucial that all of our team members are fully up to speed. Unfortunately, the progress observed during your training shifts hasn't aligned with our expectations. Despite the guidance provided across multiple training days, key information and procedures were not consistently retained and applied in subsequent shifts. This feedback has been shared by both our management and team members who worked alongside you. Given the demands of our upcoming season, we are unable to extend additional training time and believe it's best that we part ways at this point." Now, mind you, the first 2 training shifts, the trainer was chit-chatting half the time with the same manager and bartender, so I'm not sure exactly what they wanted me to do during this. Now, my 3rd shift, I thought I did pretty well. At least that's what the table said. On my 4th shift, the trainer called me lazy for not writing one table's order. I know she doesn't do it herself, but she's been there a long time. I was using the bathroom and she knew this. I was practicing the menu, and I did ask the trainer last time if she could send me pictures of the point of sale system so that I could practice using the names on there to write as I'm taking people's orders. But I also was practicing the point of sale system, and they told me I was doing a good job. So I'm not sure if picking up fast enough was the real reason, but it just kinda hurts. But unfortunately, I was kind of expecting this after not being on the schedule for 2 weeks. And I saw that they hired someone else during those 2 weeks, and they got finished with training after just 3 shifts. I genuinely enjoyed the job, but at this point, I'm not sure if I could continue serving further if this is how they're gonna view me. What should I do? Okay, honestly, someone in the comment section said it best, but the fact that the first 2 training sessions are just the trainer not doing their job, like that for me really does explain that yeah, this place sucks and they don't care about whether or not you're gonna do good. If anything, it's probably one big click and they're just gonna try and be like, oh, how does their personality gel with the rest of us? And it's like, dude, do you want me to do a good job or do you want to be my friend? We can do both, by the way, but like it clearly seems like you don't care about me being good at my job. And that's not fair for you at all. Like seriously, you should be expected to have some kind of training going into your job, and the fact that they didn't train you right is honestly what's really to blame. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about this because this does not sound like a good working environment, and I know if I was in your shoes, I definitely would not want to work there. Today, my psychiatrist asked to move in with me, which I believe is incredibly inappropriate, but right now I'm not sure if I'm overreacting because this is seriously a weird situation. Here's what's happening. Okay, so last week I had an appointment with my psychiatrist, and I disclosed to her that my husband and I were buying a house. She asked details of the house and when we were closing, so I told her exactly what was going on. She then replied by saying, "That's perfect. I just need 1 bedroom and a kitchen. I love to cook." Now, of course, at first I thought she was joking, but then she went on to say, "I told my landlord I'm moving out of my current place because the commute is too far, and I'm looking for something closer to work. Would you be willing to rent a room out to me?" She then showed me some text messages with her current landlord, who was praising her for being a good tenant. Now, I just kind of brushed it off and I said, well, I don't know about a room, but the place we are renting now will be available once we move out. And she said that would be nice, but she was looking for something cheaper. As our session ended, she told me to call her if I needed her, and then she said, "But I might need you first." Now, my husband thought it was funny when I told him, but my best friend thinks that this woman should not be a psychiatrist. Now, I've had previous uncomfortable encounters with her, where she told me my miscarriage happened because I wasn't happy enough, and at this most current session, she told me it's because my baby knew that we didn't own a home yet. So seriously, am I overreacting by thinking that this person is wildly inappropriate? Because right now, I honestly don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, yeah, this lady's completely out of line. She's literally been like, "Oh, let me move in, I love to cook," and then tried to say, "Oh yeah, your baby wasn't born because you weren't happy enough." Or even trying to be like, "Yeah, you don't have a home, so that's why the baby wasn't born." Like, what is going on right now? She doesn't sound like a good doctor at all. She's trying to mix in her personal and professional life, and that is like highly inappropriate with clients. I'm not a doctor and I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can imagine this is crossing a lot of ethical lines. So no, you're not overreacting, and in fact, I would probably never go back to her ever again, because this is something that definitely needs to be discussed with some kind of like oversight authority of some kind, because what she's doing is completely unacceptable. My mom constantly makes every single conversation all about her, constantly ignoring any conversation I try to have with her, while also derailing what we're saying to make it about her. And I'm seriously so exhausted dealing with this that I just don't know how to fix it. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my mother always finds some way to bring every story back to herself. Whether it's negative or positive, she never listens to a story without immediately relating it to herself. When I was younger, I would complain about things going on in my life, and without fail, she would always cut me off and talk about how much harder she had it without listening to or affirming anything I said. So I just stopped coming to her with any problems, but even now, if I dare say anything negative about anything, she will find a way to bring it back to herself and just whine and cry and talk about how difficult her life is. Once, I literally said I'm fighting with a friend and that I was upset, and she just didn't acknowledge it, and instead just said, "You know, I was really popular back in China, and I had a lot of friends," and then started talking about how she had a fight with a friend who was also jealous of her too. Now, when she complains, she sucks all the energy out of the room and just cries and wails while trying to turn everyone into her therapist. If we complain for one single sentence, she lashes out and she's like, "So what? I'm suffering too." Even when I talk about positive things, she will not even listen or reply to a single part of the story without just jumping into a story about herself somehow. For example, a few weeks ago, I mentioned that a friend of mine went to Boston and enjoyed his trip. Now, without even pretending to be interested for a single second, like asking which friend it was or what he did, she immediately launched into a story about how 20 years ago, she went to Boston and then went into detail about how great it was. Like she just heard the word Boston and jumped right into her own story without ever being like, "Oh, that's nice." I tried to continue my story by saying, "Yeah, he did this and that," and it's like she didn't even hear me. She just kept going on and on about her own anecdotes. And last week, it was my cousin's birthday, and she spent the entire time talking about her own birthday and what she wanted to do in 5 months. I mean, she barely even acknowledged that it was his birthday, and whenever someone would bring up his accomplishments, she would start talking about her own kids' achievements instead. It's honestly so exhausting, and I just can't deal with this for another minute. Okay, honestly, I deal with people like this on a daily basis, and I cannot stand it. I've got some family and friends who kind of fit the bill for this, and they are the worst people to talk to. And for me, it makes me hesitant to ever share share anything with them ever again. It doesn't matter if it's good news or bad news, like I know for a fact they're gonna make it about themselves, and that is simply obnoxious because everything's about them. And it's not like you're being selfish by trying to share something about yourself or something that's going on, like you're literally just trying to get a word in, and they're turning around and making this all about themselves. Like that is so annoying. So truly, I have so much sympathy for the original poster because I know exactly what this is like, because living like this is completely miserable. My boyfriend stormed out on my 30th birthday, saying that I ruined it for myself and that I need to apologize for my behavior. But I have simply not done anything wrong to this man, as he is mistreating me in a way that's honestly very concerning. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my boyfriend and I have been dating for a little over a year, and honestly, I don't know what to think anymore. For some context, last year on this exact date, I was blindsided with news that I unfairly and unexpectedly failed a clinical rotation in my doctorate program. They failed me 8 months before graduation, and the program is 4 years in total, and I would have graduated in May. I've spent the last year grieving that, going through some severe depression, and just last month, I finally got to re-enter the class. I'm now working with a lawyer and spending thousands of dollars because the same mentor and professor tried to dismiss me unfairly again during the first week of classes, after 1 year of waiting to retake this class, as it is only offered once a year. Just yesterday, the lawyer asked me for a time-sensitive document and also has asked for one today on my birthday. He came over unexpectedly last night, even though I told him I had a lot to do. I barely slept. This morning, I was tired, I had low energy, and I was emotionally drained. But despite all of that, I wasn't being mean and I wasn't trying to pick a fight. Now, I asked what we should do today, as our only plan was at 8 o'clock having a dinner with my family, and he just said, well, what do you want to do? And when he said that, I got frustrated. I've been carrying so much lately. I was hoping he would just step up, make a plan, or even grab a coffee or breakfast to start the day. I took a shower and I got ready, etc., which was about an hour's worth of time, and I thought when I went downstairs at around 10:30 in the morning, he would have a coffee waiting for me since I expressed that I wanted one. Well, I went downstairs and he was sitting on the couch with a grim look on his face. I said to him, you didn't get a coffee or anything like that? And when I said that, he got defensive and said that I was being ungrateful. He ended up yelling at me, storming out, telling me that I ruined my own birthday, cursing at me, and that I should just sit with the consequences of how I acted. He left at around 11:30 in the morning and hasn't contacted me once. We have a dinner reservation tomorrow with some of our friends, but he told me that he would go for the sake of the guests and not to celebrate me. Now it's 6 o'clock in the evening and I still haven't heard from him. I need to write another legal document for my lawyer because today is the last day of the semester, and I'm under intense pressure to get it written up as soon as possible. And my boyfriend knows all of this. I'm so depressed and overwhelmed that I can't move. I don't even want to go to dinner with my family anymore. But he says I never take accountability. He says I make everything about me, but I don't even scream at him. I don't insult him. I just express disappointment and that I was hoping to feel special after the last year on my birthday. I also want to mention that once he started yelling at me and insisting that I said he does nothing for me, which is something I never said, and telling me that I owe him an apology and that I need to take accountability, I just lost it. He knows I'm not okay and all the pressure I'm under and acting this way on my birthday. At this point, I started yelling back and crying and slammed my bedroom door. And that's when he left and said, screw you. But I just said, you're doing this on my birthday? You know I was failed unexpectedly last year on my exact birthday, and I wanted to reclaim that. He just said to me that he didn't care and that I should think about my behavior and that they have consequences. Now, his dad and I share the same birthday. He is very enmeshed with his family, which I usually don't mind since we live an hour apart and don't get to see each other daily. Before my birthday, he brought up using a hotel suite that we had won during a Halloween contest to celebrate with his dad on Friday, my actual birthday. And the hotel is meaningful to his parents because they spent a part of their honeymoon there. He then said we could celebrate my birthday the next day instead. Also, his parents don't like me because they think I'm unreliable and unserious, you know, because of my unexpected clinical failure. And my parents don't like him because they are around a lot when he acts like this, and they see me cry on the phone and get anxious and all this other stuff, you know, when I should be focusing on school. So me celebrating with his family on Friday was just not an option. I was a little disappointed as it was my 30th birthday, and I hoped that he would want to spend the actual day with me, or at least just a part of it. But when I said that, he flipped out and called me selfish and yelled at me. I was already so emotionally drained from everything going on with school and with the lawyer that I just told him it was fine. I even sent him screenshots of my mom telling me it wasn't a big deal and to let him celebrate with his family so he would just calm down and stop attacking me. Later on, I found out his sister and her boyfriend were in Greece, so his family wasn't even celebrating that day and expected me to just assume he can come to dinner with my family and I. And this honestly left a bad taste in my mouth and ruined ruin the excitement around my birthday. So seriously, is this on me at all? Or is he being emotionally awful and just unsafe? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest, it really sounds like your boyfriend is a narcissist. This guy's lying straight to your face. He's trying to project his own problems onto you as if you did anything wrong, which, spoiler alert, you didn't do anything. And instead, this guy's a complete weirdo. Like, this just doesn't make any sense. He's trying to be like, you need to apologize for your behavior. But it's like, what did you do? You haven't done a single thing. He's screaming at you on your birthday, and he's trying to be like, you need to be more grateful for this. And it's like, what? The bare minimum of you spending time with, oh, I don't know, your partner who you're supposed to care about? Like, I'm sorry, it really seems like true colors are coming out, and that, in my opinion, should be your biggest red flag. Because I really think you can find someone better, because this situation is incredibly sketchy. Am I the jerk for saying no to a trip with my boyfriend and his child, since I literally feel like an afterthought in my relationship? Because right now, I'm honestly so frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I've been dating my boyfriend for about 3.5 years. Over a year ago, we moved in together because my housemate was moving out, and at the time, we were both college students, and it just felt like the right next step. Due to personal reasons, my boyfriend had to change weekend jobs and ended up going back to an old job in his mother's town, which is about an hour's drive away. Ever since then, he's been going there every weekend and coming back on Mondays. He also has a child from a previous relationship who he sees every other weekend. Because we both used to work weekends, I don't spend a lot of time with his son, just during the summer for a few weeks when the child would stay with us. Now, I will be honest, my boyfriend wasn't always the most involved dad, but he's improved a lot, and I do admire that. But still, since he went back to working near his mom's place, we've been seeing each other a lot less and fighting a lot more. We've even fought in front of his child. Once, during an argument, my boyfriend told me, I don't need you, in front of his son, and that really hurt. And ever since then, the child has sometimes disrespected me. My boyfriend often turns a blind eye to it, probably because he only sees his son a few times a month. A couple of months ago, my boyfriend was offered a full-time job at his current workplace. He didn't ask me how I felt about it, he just told me he'd accepted it. And you know what? I congratulated him. I was really happy for him because he was excited, and the job is great for his resume. I mean, he is almost done with a software development degree, but it still stung that he didn't talk to me first or even think about what that meant for our relationship. After that, he moved back in with his mom, but left all of his stuff in our place. He kept paying rent, but it honestly just felt really weird. Like he'd officially moved out. I couldn't afford the rent on my own, and when we fought, he would say he was still helping me by paying for it. And that seriously rubbed me the wrong way, especially since his things were still here. So I found a flatmate and asked him to collect his belongings, and that's exactly what he did. Ever since then, he only comes over on weekends when he has his child, which means no couples time. He sleeps in the same bed as his son when they're here, so I still sleep alone. And last weekend, we had a huge fight. I was crying, exhausted, and very upset, and we both agreed that things need to change. Well, today, he asked if I was going to come over and visit, and I just said no. I went last week, and I drive over 500 kilometers a week just to get to and from work. I'm really tired, and I'm also down for overtime this Sunday. He then suggested that we go on a ferry trip from Dublin to Liverpool for the bank holiday, and I didn't love the idea as I would rather fly, but I was open to it. That is until he mentioned he's bringing his son. I then blurted out that I wasn't interested in going on a trip with them, and I had assumed that this would be something for just the two of us to try and reconnect. Well, when I said that, he got upset, saying that I used to be very hands-on with his son, watching him so my boyfriend could rest or play video games, as well as cooking and cleaning, taking him to the doctor, waking up in the middle of the night to give him medicine, or help him go to the bathroom. But after that day he told me that he didn't need me, I felt like a complete idiot, and so I just stepped back. I went from acting like a stepmom to just being dad's girlfriend. I still play with the child occasionally, but that's about it. During our argument, my boyfriend called me a vegetable for the way I behave around his son, and this really hurt. I mean, just the day before, I had taken them both to see Lilo and Stitch and paid for it, and while he apologized later, the comment still stuck with me. When his son is around, I feel like I don't belong. I seriously feel like I'm in the way, and if my boyfriend tries to hug me, his child will run in between us and ask his dad to stay with him instead. Now, I don't blame the kid. He's only 6, but I do think it's my boyfriend's responsibility to manage those boundaries. I used to feel welcome with them, but now I simply don't. I feel like I'm just there on the outside looking in. I really don't want to take this trip with them. I thought this was going to be a chance for us to spend time together and fix what's already been broken. But again, I feel like I'm just an afterthought, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Okay, I've got to be honest with the original poster, because your boyfriend is one giant walking red flag. Like, this guy wants a babysitter, he wants someone who will cook for him, he wants you to literally take care of your kid, but at the end of the day, he doesn't want a relationship. And that really is so weird to me. So on that end, I don't blame you for being really frustrated and being like, like, okay, I'm an afterthought here. This guy doesn't care about me. Look at the way he's treating me. I think you're spot on for seeing things exactly the way they are. Because in my opinion, your boyfriend is taking advantage of you, and that seems like a huge waste of time. My toxic friend has been making fun of me for months by using me as the butt of the joke to try and get a laugh. But after putting up with this for months, he finally goes way too far, forcing me to take a stand in a way that he honestly never expected. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so my friend, who I will call Alex, wasn't just my friend. We were the kind of friends who became a part of each other's daily routines. It started in 5th grade. We were randomly partnered up in gym class for some team building relay where neither of us really cared enough to win. That first conversation was nothing special, just complaints about the school lunch and jokes about how the gym teacher ran like a penguin, but somehow we stuck. It wasn't even something we had to talk about. We were just always around each other. Through middle school, we built a friendship on games, bad YouTube videos, inside jokes, and hours of mindless conversation that meant everything to us. He knew the name of my childhood cat, the code to my phone, and the fact that I hated the number 7 for no real reason. I knew his favorite snack, the way he scratched behind his ear when he lied, and the fact that his dad walked out when he was 8 years old. We were family. At least I thought we were. In high school, things shifted and I noticed it slowly. He started hanging out with the louder, flashier people, the kind of people who always filmed everything for TikTok, who thought roasting your friends was the highest form of comedy, who chased after clout like it was air. And at first, I laughed along when he made me the target of jokes in front of them. It was always small stuff, telling them I had a weird fear of mannequins, that I still slept with a fan on because silence made me anxious, and I would laugh too because it really felt harmless. But over time, the jokes started to hit different. He'd bring up things I told him in confidence, things that no one else knew, like how I used to stay home from school when my anxiety got too bad to fake being okay, or about how one time I called a helpline during a panic attack because I didn't know who else to talk to, how I wrote letters to myself in a notebook to remind myself to stay alive when things felt too heavy. He turned those things into punchlines, all of it disguised as dark humor. But you know what? I let it slide because I still believed he was my best friend. I just kept forgiving him and swallowing all of it down. I told myself he didn't mean harm, that he was just caught up in trying to impress people, that deep down he was still the same guy who stayed up with me on FaceTime when my dog passed away. But the night it all fell apart started with a message that said, "Party at my cousin's house this Saturday. You better come along. Wouldn't be the same without you." Now I hesitated. I barely knew his cousin. In fact, I didn't know most of the people who would be there, but a part of me hoped that this was a sign. Maybe he wanted to reconnect. Maybe it was his way of saying we're still good. So I just went. The party was loud and crowded. I didn't know anyone except for Alex and a couple of faces I'd seen on his Instagram. I hung close to him at first and he acted normal and friendly, and we talked like we used to, joked about how weird his cousin's new haircut was, and for a brief moment, I felt like maybe everything was okay. But then the thing that kind of broke me finally happened. People were gathered in the living room with drinks in hand, music low for once, and this is when someone shouted, "Let's do story time, embarrassing moments only." And when someone said that, Alex jumped up and I honestly just should have known. He then grabbed everyone's attention with the kind of confidence that only came from knowing you were about to be the center of attention. He then looked around the room with this smirk I recognized way too well. And that's when he said it. "Alright, I've got one. My boy over here," pointing straight at me, "once told me that he used to wear long sleeves every single day, even during the summer, because he was hiding the scars on his arms. Like he would say he was just cold, but nah, he was cutting. And it's all because a girl didn't respond to his message. He said, 'Oh, I feel broken, but I don't want to be alive anymore.'" And when he said this, he laughed and other people laughed as well. But some of them also went quiet. One girl muttered, "Man, that's like kind of messed up." But most of them just followed Alex's lead. Someone then pulled out their phone and another guy asked if this is real. And Alex just grinned and said, "Yeah." I was like, "Bro, chill. You're not in a Netflix show." At this point, I didn't even move. I mean, I simply couldn't. It felt like everything inside of me froze. I just looked at him and I honestly didn't see my best friend. I saw a stranger wearing his face and I realized right then that maybe he had been that stranger for a while. So I stood up quietly. No scene, no yelling, and I just walked out. He didn't follow after me, not that night at least, but the next day I got messages. And of course, there was no apology and just excuses. But after I saw those messages, I didn't reply, but instead I blocked him. For days, I felt hollow. I replayed everything, not just the party, but the months leading up to it. All the things I ignored, all the times I laughed along when I shouldn't have, all the times I thought loyalty meant staying quiet, while someone slowly erased the parts of you that you trusted them with. I told him things I never told anyone else, things that came from the ugliest, most painful corners of my life, and he turned them into entertainment, for laughs and likes and attention. I don't care if he regrets it now, and I don't care if he realized how badly he messed up. Some lines once crossed, you just can't walk back over, and some things once you've said them echo too loud to be ignored. weird. I used to think that losing a friend like Alex would feel like a death, a grief, but honestly it didn't. It felt like waking up, like finally realizing that someone who says they love you while humiliating you in front of friends was never your friend in the first place. He thought it was funny. He thought I'd let it slide like I always did. But that was the last time because I never looked back ever again after that. Okay, first of all, I want to say to the original poster, I am so sorry this happened to you. That is so messed up that Alex even began to share that stuff about you because you do not deserve to have your secrets out in the open like that, especially when they're going to be like put on a pedestal for ridicule. That's not fair. You don't deserve that. And it's especially stupid that he didn't even apologize. He'd like literally just tried to excuse it away. I wouldn't even be surprised if he tried to blame you, which people like this probably would. So honestly, with all things considered, I think blocking him absolutely was the best thing to do because this guy was not your friend. He hasn't been your friend for a while. Like the second someone tries to do stuff like that, where they're sharing very private things about me with everybody else, that is the moment I'm going to be like, no, we're not friends and I cannot hang out with you anymore. You're clearly a bully who's just turned on me and that's not fair for me. So yeah, this whole situation sucks and I'm honestly glad you did cut him off because this guy is not your friend and you deserve way better than this. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My roommates all said to me that if I'm tired of cleaning up after them, then I should just leave their stuff exactly where I found it. So I decided to get some petty revenge by doing exactly that, frustrating them beyond end until they finally complied and started cleaning up after themselves. Here's how I did it. Okay, I'm a 35-year-old female now, but in college I rented a small house with 3 dudes, all of us in our early 20s. I have many stories of petty revenge from this time in my life, as guys in their 20s who are living away from their mothers for the first time often need the point illustrated in no uncertain terms, but this is one of my absolute favorites. The house had a bathroom for the 4 of us, and as the only girl and the only one with a clean freak for a mother, I ended up doing basically all of the cleaning. I frequently put things away in the common space, namely shoes in the front closet, laptop on a shelf so no one trips over the cord, etc., both because it made cleaning easier and because it's common courtesy to clean up your crap in common spaces. I was often met with irritation from my roommates, as they said they couldn't find their stuff, as if I was hiding it from them and not putting it in a perfectly reasonable and agreed upon place. During this time, one roommate also had a girlfriend who was basically a squatter in our house. I did my best to be friendly and welcoming, including driving her places when I had time and helping her find a job, which were both mistakes in hindsight, but that's another story for another day. She technically had a place to live elsewhere, but all of her stuff somehow ended up in our house, including our one tiny bathroom, which she showered in twice a day, despite contributing nothing to rent or utilities. The number of products lining our shower easily tripled when she appeared, which made cleaning the bathroom a nightmare. Now, I asked her to please corral her bathroom stuff and keep it in his room so the shower could be clean without knocking 27 conditioner bottles over, but that was apparently asking for too much. The final verdict from my roommates was that I should just leave their stuff where I found it. So I did exactly that. When I cleaned the shower, I sprayed down all of her bathroom products with cleaning supplies rather than moving it out of the way. And as a result, it melted her expensive shampoo bar pretty quickly and made all of her bottled products really slippery. But you know what? I was just following instructions. The roommate's laptop was plugged in, so I tripped over the cord while walking through the living room. Well, you said leave it, so I did, even though tripping over it unplugged it, and now it's dead when you need to use it. But this is my personal favorite one. My roommate and girlfriend left their shoes all over the living room rug, even though the closet is literally 3 feet away, but I needed to vacuum, so I left their stuff where I found it, rolled up the living room rug with their shoes inside, and vacuumed the whole house. They literally then came out halfway through and asked where I put their shoes because they were leaving, but I said to them I didn't put them anywhere. I left them exactly where I found them. Now at this point they kept looking really confused until about 30 minutes later when I unrolled the rug and replaced it, revealing their shoes. They then called me a jerk, but after the shoe incident, suddenly her bathroom products were put away. The shoes ended up in the closet and the laptop was plugged in somewhere out of the way, which honestly is exactly how it should have been from the beginning. Yeah, this is one of the best ways to handle this because roommates like this are the worst. They're lazy, they don't do anything to help out, and then they complain when you don't like the fact that their crap is everywhere. So good for you for getting some revenge because these people sound incredibly obnoxious. Am I the jerk for not attending my best friend's baby shower after the hurtful thing that she said over me being single? Because right now I'm still upset and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. So my best friend and I have been close ever since college. She got pregnant last year and I've been super supportive even though I'm not really a baby person. She's been planning this elaborate baby shower for months and I was supposed to be co-hosting with her sister. I mean, we picked out decorations, we sent out invites, the whole thing. Well, last weekend we were at Target getting last minute minute supplies, and she was complaining about another friend who's been weird since the pregnancy announcement. She then looks at me and says, "Well, at least you're handling this better than I expected. I was worried you'd get jealous and bitter like single girls usually do." And when I heard this, I was so shocked, and I just didn't even respond in the moment. But it's seriously been eating at me all week. Now, the shower is this Saturday, and I just don't want to go anymore. When she texted asking about final head count, I told her I just couldn't make it. And now she's been blowing up my phone asking what's wrong. I then explained why I was hurt, and she said I'm overreacting and that it was just a joke. But now she's telling people I abandoned her over nothing. So honestly, am I being too sensitive? Because that comment really stung, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I can honestly see where you're coming from here. That was a really rude comment, and the fact that she's trying to be like, "Oh, it was a joke, you're overreacting." Like, instead of apologizing, like she's really trying to double down and be like, "Oh, you're the one with a problem." And that for me is like the main reason why I would be very pissed off. I don't need to be treated like that. I definitely don't need to be talked down to and treated like my feelings don't matter, all because you're the one that did something that really offended me. And yeah, that comment is very hurtful. You had no reason to be talked to like that. So no, I don't think you would be the jerk if you didn't go to this baby shower, because it does seem like your friend is being very rude to you, and you definitely do not deserve that. Am I the jerk for not waking up a tourist who overslept and missed the day trip that she paid for? Because after dealing with her waffling about for the past few days, she finally got the karma that she deserved, despite the fact that she's pissed off and said that she's gonna leave me a bad review. Here's what's happening. To start things out, I'm a 21-year-old female, and I'm a Bulgarian tour guide who accompanies groups to Sicily. On a recent trip, one woman who was traveling alone, who was probably in her mid-30s, was consistently oversleeping. The first day we arrived, we had a day trip planned, for which we depart at 8 o'clock in the morning, as we do with all other day tours. Now, I make sure that everybody there is informed of the departure times on the bus the day before, and they also have my number to call in case they forget, so I can remind them. They also all have printed out pamphlets with a schedule made by the travel agency that I personally hand out that has the time for the departure on it. All of the group was on time except for this one woman. She was late by maybe 10 minutes, which, okay, maybe she got caught up in something and was late, so I just excused it. Then I mentioned to the whole bus in the microphone that I didn't tolerate lateness beyond 15 minutes at most, with the only stipulation being like in case of an emergency, like a forgotten possession or something like that. But regardless, I must always be called and informed in case someone is running late. Now, thankfully, otherwise, the trip went pretty good. The next day, the same tourist was late again by about 25 minutes, almost an entire half hour. I called her twice to no answer, and we were just about to leave without her when she came out running and got on the bus. And she got really lucky because the receptionist of the hotel had asked me about a missing piece of information on the rooming list, and that earned her just a bit of time. Now, I reminded everyone again that I will not be waiting anymore for late tourists in the morning, and that waking up on time is their responsibility. When we came back that evening, she asked me if I could make sure to wake her up on time, but I reminded her a third time that I'm not responsible for waking people up. Everyone gets a printed itinerary with departure times, and I announce everything the day before, but she just kept saying, no, just knock on my door if I'm not out by 8:15. And I just kept repeating, I really can't do that for everyone, please set an alarm. Well, on the day we were visiting Syracuse, she didn't show up. I waited 15 minutes after the supposed departure time, called her twice to no response, then left with a bus and the rest of the group. She then called me in a panic about an hour later, asking where we were, but I explained the situation calmly. She then got angry and said that I had one job and that I cheated her out of the money that she paid to go on that trip. She missed the whole day trip and was furious the next day. Later, she told the rest of the group that I abandoned her and also called my agency, leaving a bad review about me. So seriously, am I the jerk for not personally waking up a grown woman, despite warning her multiple times that I wouldn't do this? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, before we go any further, the original poster has an update, and this is exactly what they had to say. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I talked to my manager today. I was nervous at first because I was already tired of this whole shenanigan, and I didn't want to spend ages defending myself. So I went to him first and I explained the situation before he approached me. He told me word for word, honey, I deleted that BS from my email as soon as I read it. And honestly, I just really was so happy. What an icon. They're removing the bad review, keeping my reputation intact. Holy crap, imagine being in your 30s and not being able to wake up on time. Like seriously, if you really spent that much money and you can't even get up on time for the tour guide, then what are you doing, man? You could have done that at home. And the original poster couldn't have explained this anymore. They literally said, look, if you want to be on time, then you gotta get up on time. I'm not gonna hold your hand and knock on your door and say, okay, it's time to get up. Like, dude, set an alarm like everybody else. You are an adult. Like seriously, have some kind of responsibility, because this entire scenario is that tourist's fault and nobody else's. Am I the jerk for asking for my dead sister's ring back after my brother stole it from me to use to propose to his this girlfriend. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my sister passed away when I was 6 years old, and she was like 17. We weren't super close or anything like that, but I still remember little bits of her. Her laugh, how she always painted her nails, her posters, etc. She was like this perfect angel to my mom after she passed away, and I barely remember the funeral. When I was like 12 years old, I found this old ring in her stuff. It was nothing fancy, just a silver ring with a small stone, but it fit me, and I don't know why, but I just kept it. It wasn't some big dramatic thing. I didn't steal it or anything like that. I just took it and I started keeping it. I didn't wear it loads or flaunt it, but I just had it in this little box, and sometimes I'd look at it when I missed her. It kind of became this one thing that felt like mine, like my piece of her. So anyways, last weekend when we had this family lunch, and my 27-year-old brother brings his girlfriend who everyone knew he was going to propose to, and yeah, he stands up, does a big speech, and then pulls out the ring, my sister's ring, the one that I've kept for like 7 years. I literally froze. His girlfriend starts crying, people are clapping, and I'm just sat there saying to myself, what is going on? I look at my mom and she just smiles at me like nothing happened. After dinner, I ask her, was that the ring? And she's like, yeah, your brother asked me and dad, and we said it was fine. She said it was sweet and symbolic, and my sister would have wanted it passed down or whatever. And I was like, what are you talking about? It was never yours to give though. Like, I've had it for years. And she just says to me, oh, come on, it's just a ring, don't be dramatic. But like when I had it, it wasn't just a ring. So yeah, I kind of snapped. I waited till people were outside and I told my brother I wanted it back. And at first he laughed, but then he was like, what? No. So I said, okay, then I'll tell your girlfriend where it came from and we'll let her decide. He then got really mad and said I was ruining his proposal and making it about me like always. My mom then dragged me into the kitchen saying everyone noticed I wasn't happy and that I left halfway through dinner. And you know what? She's right, because I was crying in the bathroom. My dad tried to calm it down, but my brother just kept on going about how selfish I was and that I had been weird about my sister for years. But at this point, I didn't say anything and I just left early, and I haven't spoken to any of them ever since then. My mom called me up yesterday asking if I had calmed down and if I'm ready to say sorry, but I said not really, and then she just hung up. My cousin texted me later saying it was actually super messed up and she doesn't blame me, but I honestly don't know. I probably could have handled this better, but I just felt so blindsided. It's not even about the stupid ring. It's the fact that they acted like it didn't matter to me, like it didn't matter at all. So am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm still incredibly upset. Okay, this is really messed up from your family because they literally stole this from you. Like, they straight up robbed you of something that they never cared about in the first place. They probably only wanted that ring when they saw you wearing it on occasion, and they're like, oh yeah, she did wear that when she was alive. Let's take it and use it for a proposal. You know, 7 years after the fact. Like, what's going on right now? Because I'm sure you've mentioned it and talked about it, and you've kept it safe for 7 years. So the fact that they stole it and used it for this is so disrespectful. Like, wouldn't you want to have some kind of conversation with your sister and be like, look, I want to use my deceased sister's ring to propose to my girlfriend. Will you allow me to do this? Like, having a conversation like that would have been way better than what they did. If anything, I think the original poster would have been more on board with it if they introduced it in this way. Like, otherwise it's just straight up stealing and just gaslighting. So no, you're not the jerk here. You've clearly been taking care of that ring for several years, and the fact that they stole it and used it like this without asking first, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Today, I just found out the real reason why my ex broke up with me 4 years ago out of nowhere, and now I'm incredibly upset and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I'm in a healthy relationship and I have been for almost 4 years now. We live together and we're planning on buying a house and getting married. The person I was with before this relationship was a longtime childhood friend who broke up with me suddenly out of the blue with little explanation. Now, I was very surprised and upset about the breakup at the time, and I never got any closure as to why he ended things. As we were childhood friends, we shared a friendship group and have continued to share the same friendship group, meaning we often are at the same social events together, but I just deliberately don't speak directly to him or seek out any interaction with him, as I feel like our friendship ended when our relationship did, but I do try to keep things civil. Well, he started to date another girl in my group recently, and I was speaking to her and explaining how happy I was for her, as she's been dating a string of awful men, and I was glad that she was choosing a safe guy. Well, she then confessed to me that she's been sleeping with him for years, and that they actually slept together when me and him were dating. She told me that the reason why he broke up with me suddenly was because he felt guilty for cheating on me, and that he had been confiding in her that he wanted to break up with me because he felt bad about sleeping with her. Now, she was surprised that this was news to me, and I just tried to keep a poker face and not seem upset. I now feel conflicted. On one hand, this was over 4 years ago, almost 5 probably, and I'm now in a happy and healthy relationship, but I now feel so blindsided by this, especially as she was someone I considered a friend. I've not spoken to my partner about this because I don't want him to think I'm still hung up on my past relationship relationships. But seriously, I'm at such a loss right now that I really just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I want to say I'm so sorry this is happening because this sounds like it's going to be devastating to deal with. And yeah, you absolutely have every right to deal with this in some kind of way, in my opinion. But let's break this down real quick because this is some crazy stuff. First of all, you have a terrible friend group because I guarantee that that friend is not the only person that knew that your boyfriend was sleeping around with other people in the friend group. Like, holy crap, they're probably all in on it besides you. And that is crazy in my opinion. Like, there's no good excuse for that. If they were really your friends, they would be like, hey, this is what's going on and you should definitely know for your own happiness. Because this guy literally avoided talking to you about this because he felt guilty. Not because you did anything wrong, but because he messed up in a huge way and continued to mess up, and he just didn't want to face any of the consequences. And I really hope eventually you can see this as like a freeing thing where you're like, oh good, I dodged a train with this guy, but it doesn't ignore the fact that this guy literally cheated on you with your best friend. Like, that's some crazy crap in my opinion. So I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be reevaluating my entire friend group. A lot of people in the comment section of this post said that, and I echo the same opinion. Because if one of them can go behind your back and mess around like that, then there's a high likelihood that everybody else in some way, shape, or form knew about it and still decided to say nothing to you. And in my opinion, I just don't think you deserve that because this is so messed up. My entitled siblings are convinced that my mom has a secret stash of money, as they're now pressuring my mom to give up her house so that they could split it solely between the two of them. And I'm honestly so exhausted dealing with this that I seriously just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my brother, my sister, and their spouses feel as if mom should give them her house and property and then move into an old folks home, or even just buy them a house. Now, while my mom is almost 80 years old, she has all of her faculties about her. She is well educated and very spry, but it's mostly my sister and brother causing all the trouble. A few years ago, my stepdad passed away. He was a great guy and good to my mom. My older brother and my younger sister are convinced that mom has secret money that was left to her when my stepdad passed away. Now, at first, they thought that she had cash hidden in the house. So they would visit her and one of them would keep her busy while the other would snoop around. Then they convinced themselves that she had a secret bank account somewhere else. But no, she doesn't. I do most of her banking and set up her accounts for auto pay. She owns her house free and clear. After dad died, I orchestrated a GoFundMe to get her house paid off, and we were successful. And they don't know that I did this. They were kept out of the loop for fear that they'd pressure her into giving them some of the money, so they have no idea how she paid her house off, and only that she paid it off in some way. But they really ramped up the pressure after she paid off the house, and now they are convinced more than ever that she has a secret stash of money. But eventually, we told them about the GoFundMe for her house, hoping they would finally back off of mom, but instead they lost it. They wanted some kind of accounting of the money, and they wanted anything that was in that account turned over to them, saying they would take me to court for elder financial mistreatment. Now, she only has to pay the monthly bills, and I set up the auto pay for her, so I know exactly how much money she has. Enough to live on, but not enough to have any fun. So I pay her water and cell phone bills for her, I transfer the money to her account every month, but they have each told her she needs to give them money for a down payment on a house since she refuses to give up her home of 35 years. They also say that if she won't give them any money, then she needs to give up an acre to each of them. And it's like, how are they so entitled to her money? She receives less than $4,000 a month to live on, and I cannot convince them that she doesn't have a secret bank account. The thing they do not understand is that he was not our biological father, and he didn't raise us. Mom and our stepdad married when we were all out of the house. No matter how many times I point this out, they say it doesn't matter, since they still called him dad. It's been a few years, but they still bring it up often. Mom called me last night and she was tired and had been working hard the entire day, and yet the both of them have been calling her for the last few weeks, upping the pressure. The last time they brought it up, they talked about splitting her house and property between the two of them, and then once again mentioning her secret bank account. Now, there are 5 siblings altogether, but since the other 3, namely with houses and careers, are doing better than these two, they think they're entitled to her home and property after she passes away. But what they do not know is that she left her house and 5 acres to an animal rescue and activist group that she is very active in. And I know this because I'm the executor of the will. She's asked me not to tell them, and honestly, I can see exactly why. So seriously, how do I get them to back off of her without telling them that there's no chance in the world that they are ever going to get anything? She doesn't want them to know about her will for fear that they might bother the animal rescue activist group that she's a part of. What should I do? Honestly, the way that your siblings are acting is completely out of line. Seriously, like, these people are delusional. Maybe instead of trying to secure an inheritance that isn't there, they can get to work and figure their careers out. Like, dude, what is their problem? It is personally so obnoxious watching people act like this, especially over something that's literally not even there. So my only real suggestion is maybe telling your mom to just not answer the phone anymore, because this kind of behavior is super weird, and you guys do not deserve to deal with this in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My former boss disputes my work history 6 months after I left, as he literally reports me on LinkedIn, even though the history that I gave was completely accurate. So I got some revenge by filling his inbox up with spam, ruining his work and home life in a way that he will never recover from. Here's how I did it. A few years ago, I was working at a corporate job and had a very significant death in the family, my grandfather, that I needed to take time off to go handle. I needed to help with the estate and honestly just grieve the loss of my grandfather, because after all, we were very, very close to each other. I asked my manager to use emergency PTO and it was denied. I asked to go on FMLA instead and it was also denied, saying that grandparents didn't qualify. I then told him I wouldn't be able to come in for at least a couple of weeks while I flew down to Florida to attend the funeral and help with the estate. But they told me that if I did that, I would be terminated. So they terminated me and even had the gall to offer me 2 weeks of severance in exchange for signing an NDA, a gag order, and an indemnity clause, which means I would not be able to sue them. I wouldn't be able to talk smack about them or others online. I mean, I think you get the idea. And of course, I completely refused. That conversation took place on August 1st. On my LinkedIn profile, I listed that I worked there from my start date to the beginning of August, but the company dated my termination for the 31st of July, and they said this had to do with benefits or something like that. Well, fast forward to January, and I was up early with my 6-week-old newborn, and it's there that I got a LinkedIn notification that my former manager viewed my profile. A few minutes later, I got an email from LinkedIn that my employment at that company was being disputed, and he disputed the difference between the 31st of July and August 1st. LinkedIn ignored my dispute of the report and removed the company experience from my profile entirely. Not to mention that when I did repost the experience, it would no longer be verified by LinkedIn because I would have to verify through a company email address, which I no longer had. I mean, the absolute gall of this guy. And seriously, you're thinking about me 6, almost 7 months later? So I decided to get some petty revenge. I found his home address online, I had his personal cell phone number in my phone, and I also found his personal and work email address. And it's here that I signed him up for as much spam as I could possibly find. And not just that, I went to every morning company and real estate agency in the area asking to be put in contact with an agent, saying that I was looking for a house for $800,000 and for moving companies to give quotes for a cross-country move. I gave those websites every contact information I had for him. And this is something that would excite just about anyone getting that kind of sales lead. Well, fast forward, and a former coworker in the same department told me that his phone was blowing up for days. And we're talking both his work phone and his personal cell phone. And his role was client-facing, so he couldn't just ignore the phone calls. Now, I don't know if he ever figured out that it was me who did that, but those calls would have started pouring in within an hour of his report to LinkedIn, which honestly is the least I can do for this scumbag. Good for you for getting back at your boss. This is so stupid. He seriously went on LinkedIn and said, sorry, but you didn't work here until August 1st. You only worked here until July 31st. Sorry, but that's the way it is. Like, seriously, this guy's obsessed with you. Like, what's going on right now? You mean to tell me that this guy literally went out of his way to report you to LinkedIn by being like, this is being disputed because he's lying? Like, dude, what's your problem? Like, seriously, what's going on right now? That is so ignorant because it's just not the truth. Because in reality, the original poster had to do this to go, I don't know, grieve the loss of his grandfather. You know, the guy that literally died in his family. And the boss is like, no, you can't go see them. If you do, you're gonna get terminated. Like, what a loser, dude. Seriously. So this really was the least you could do for this guy. Because in my opinion, he deserved way worse than getting spammed. Am I the jerk for holding firm on my boundaries with my roommate, as I'm literally just trying to figure out our living situation in a way that respects the both of us as best as we can? Because things are getting messy and I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I'm moving into a new apartment in a few weeks with a roommate. The apartment has 2 bedrooms and the rent is $2,600. One room is a little bigger and has more closet space, and my roommate and I are trying to figure out who gets which room and how to split rent in a way that feels fair. Now, she's saying she wants the bigger room and that it should only be $50 more than the other one, but she also wants to put her desk in the living room to work there. I already told her I'm not comfortable with that because I would feel like I'm disturbing her if I needed to cook or just relax in the shared space while she needs some quiet or is in a meeting or something like that. I also told her that I think the bigger room should cost $100 more because it has more space and a larger closet. She then came back and said she thinks the rent should only be about $50 difference, and she really wants to have a desk in the living room and maybe use more of the shared hallway storage than me as well. Now to me, that just feels really imbalanced and is way more than I would try to ask for personally. I mean, she's getting a bigger room, an extra separate workspace outside of her room, and taking over more of the shared space, all for barely more rent. My two biggest priorities are, for one, having a decent sized room where I can study privately since I'm starting an intense dental hygiene program, and two, feeling like I can use the shared space without walking on eggshells or constantly worrying about being too loud. So I suggested two different things. My first option is that she takes the smaller room, we split the rent evenly, and she uses the hallway storage to make up for the closet size difference and put her desk in the living room. The second option is she takes the larger room, pays $100 more, or just $50 more if I get the single parking lot spot, and the shared spaces stay neutral, meaning there would be no desk, and we get to split the hallway storage equally, and everyone can use the space whenever. I'm not being stubborn about the money, and I honestly would be happy to pay whatever I need to if the common spaces were shared evenly, and I had the larger room. I just don't want to end up in a situation where I feel resentful or like I don't have space to breathe. I've tried to compromise, but it feels like she's pushing for everything she wants without really taking my needs into account. So am I the jerk for holding firm to these compromise options and telling her no? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm out of line. Okay, in my opinion, you absolutely are not the jerk here. Seriously, you guys are living together, which in my opinion really does mean that yeah, you should probably be working together to make sure this works for the both of you. And the fact that she's pushing so hard to be like, no, this is the way I want it, that's really obnoxious in my opinion and just completely over the line. And if anything, it would almost make me tempted to find another roommate of some kind, because this sounds super obnoxious. Like, I would not want to deal with this. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because what you're asking in my opinion is super reasonable. Am I the jerk for supposedly ruining my vacation with my boyfriend and I, all because I was nervous about driving in a country I've never been to before? Because right now he's kind of blaming me for everything, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my boyfriend and I are on vacation, and we decided to rent a car as it was his idea. Now, it's important to note that he doesn't have a valid driving license for the country we're in, so the only possible way to drive around is me being the only driver for the whole vacation trip. Now, I usually really dislike driving, but of course I do it anyways out of necessity. But driving in a foreign country with no one else who could take my place in case of an emergency seemed a bit too much for me. And also, I'm really young, so I don't have a lot of experience. For reference, I'm a 23-year-old female and my boyfriend is 27. So he tried to convince me, and after some arguing, I finally gave in to his request. And I mean, everybody knows that sometimes you have to make a compromise in a relationship. The problem is that once we arrived, I realized it was more difficult than I thought. I got really nervous, and I also acted really rude towards him, all while I was driving, because I was literally stressed out, which made me feel really bad. I said I was sorry and everything, but the trip just kept getting more and more stressful, with me having to drive for hours to reach the different places he booked, and getting so tired both physically and mentally, as I'm not used to long drives in the slightest. And because he doesn't drive, he literally couldn't even take my place. But now he's telling me about how I'll never go anywhere with this attitude of mine, and how surprised he is that I'm so adverse to trying new things, and how I shouldn't go abroad if I'm so uncomfortable with getting out of my comfort zone. All of this because I got so stressed out with all the driving that I needed to do. I feel like I made some mistakes and I could have behaved better while driving, but I also feel like he doesn't realize how demanding he's being and how bad his words hurt me. I told him that I compromised with him and decided to rent a car, but he could have compromised too and booked places that weren't so far away from one another. He criticized me a lot for the whole vacation, basically telling me that I'm not made for the life that I would like to live because of this car stuff, and he's actually referencing me studying abroad and all that. I also suggested that we bring the car back to the rental company earlier and find another solution, but he said absolutely not, that since I said yes, I should be driving around until the end of the trip. Now, at this point, I don't care who's wrong or who's right. I just want to salvage what's left of the vacation and stop fighting, because right now I don't know if I'm the jerk and I seriously just don't know what to do. Okay, first of all, I would never apologize to this man ever again, but secondly, it looks like his true colors are finally coming out on vacation. Like, this guy literally is like, no, we can't bring it back to the car company because you agreed to do this. That means you're gonna drive around the entire time. And my only response would be to say, like, no, not if you're gonna act like that. Like, this is some weird narcissistic behavior. You don't owe this guy an apology. He's being so stupid. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. This guy's being a massive weirdo, and the fact that he's trying to put this on you, in my opinion, is so stupid, because you literally have done nothing wrong. Am I the jerk for not letting my partner come with me on my vacation after he started to try and change my plans that are very strict? Here's what's going on. Okay, I'm a 30-year-old female, and I've had this vacation plan since I was in middle school. It centers around a movie and book series I'm in love with, and I am a massive fan. I have have a vacation booked to see the filming locations, I'm staying in some of the filming locations, and basically I have a very strict itinerary. This has been a dream of mine forever, and I'm unwilling to compromise on a single instance of it. It sounds crazy, but I had a rough home life, and this series was my escape, and now that I have adult money, I will see this to fruition. Now my partner, who is a 30-year-old male, wants to come along with me and is willing to pay for anything he also wants to do. Now I love him, he is great, and I'd be willing for him to come along. However, he does not like this series, and it wouldn't be fun for him, and he also wants to add some national parks and other things to the trip. But if we did that, it would screw over my time-sensitive itinerary since it's planned for every day exactly. I told him if he comes along, everything he wants to do is on his own time, as my itinerary is what I'm sticking to exactly. I have this week planned to the minute, and I will regret if I miss a single thing. Well, he's now upset because he feels this defeats the point of him coming along. He wants to spend that time with me, and he's worried about me flying solo as a woman across the country. He wants to be there in case the rental car breaks down or something happens so that I'm not anxious and alone trying to solve my problems. Now, I get those concerns. I think they're valid. I mean, I do have anxiety after all, and his desire to support me is very sweet. There would be a 4-hour time difference between us if something did happen, which is another concern of his. He feels I'm being very concrete on this and is frustrated by my lack of willingness to budge on it. I told him it's no different than if he wanted to go to New Zealand to see the Lord of the Rings stuff, and I tried to plan other stuff that wasn't Lord of the Rings related on days where he was wanting to visit Hobbitville or whatever the Shire village is called. I told him if he wants to come, he can either do his own thing, follow my itinerary, or just not come at all. I told him honestly, I want to go alone. I want to go on this trip because I want to be with someone who I know will appreciate it as much as I will, which is me. And now he's upset because he feels like I'm not seeing the big picture and I don't want to spend that time together. So honestly, am I being unreasonable here? Because right now I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, seriously, your boyfriend's being super weird in my opinion, and the fact that he's trying to be like, oh yeah, you can't do this because you have anxiety. What if the car breaks down? What if you're flying and something happens? It's like, dude, your girlfriend is 30 years old. Like, what's going on right now? I'm pretty sure she can rent a car by herself and fly solo, no problem. And honestly, for the original poster, I completely get it. I understand where you're coming from, where you're like, look, this is super important and I have an itinerary I want to follow. Like, this has been a dream of yours for a long time and you don't want anything getting in the way. And it sounds like your partner would absolutely get in the way. He's trying to derail this trip you've waited for a long time. And that is unacceptable in my opinion. Like, seriously, that's not okay. And the fact that he doesn't see that is really annoying as well. So no, you're not the jerk for being picky about this. You guys can go on another vacation if he's so extremely upset about this. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to plan for like a year from now another trip that you guys can do together, or sooner if it's really bothering him. But it really seems like he's trying to like hijack your vacation, and that just sounds super annoying. And in my opinion, that makes him more of the jerk than you ever will be. Am I the jerk for calling the police and reporting my friends after my gaming console went missing from my house? Because my 3 friends are the only people who have been in my house for the past 3 months. And despite the fact that I've tried to get them to come clean in some kind of way, they still are in complete denial, refusing to give me any information about my missing console, and even going as far as saying that they'll call the police on me if I contact them. And at this point, I'm super frustrated and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 33-year-old male and I was gone out of state at the end of May of 2025. I had entrusted a friend of mine to watch my dogs while I was gone, and I told him that I only wanted him to go check on the dogs, clean up whatever mess they made, and then go. And for the sake of the story, we'll call this friend Aaron. Well, I have a doorbell camera, and every time he was there, which was like 4 times in total, he brought his friend who we will call Chad. I texted Aaron and I asked why Chad was there too, and Aaron told me that his car wasn't starting, and he didn't want to walk and he needed a ride, and Chad didn't want to wait in the car. Well, Aaron and Chad had been over at my place before, so I just shrugged it off and I let it be. Well, a few weeks ago, another friend had been staying with me, and we'll call him Nate for the sake of the story, and after something happened with his mode of transportation that had broken down, I offered him a place to stay and he graciously obliged and said thank you. He also said when the time comes he'll get a job, sign a lease with me, and then pay the rent, which I thought was great, so I agreed. Well, cut to Wednesday and I wanted to play a game on my handheld console. I keep it on my entertainment center in the living room. I went to go grab it and the system, the dock, the power cable, and HDMI cable were all gone. I didn't take them with me on my trip, and even if I did, I would not have brought the dock, the power cord, and the HDMI cables. It's a USB-C charging port, and I have plenty of those just lying around. I call the manufacturer of the console and they find the serial number and they give it to me. I asked if they could somehow see any information on when it was last signed in or anything like that, and he said that the system showed a factory reset within the last 7 days. So there's a high probability it was wiped and just completely sold. So I reached out to Aaron, Chad, and Nate, and of course, none of them had even seen screen or even knew that I had one. And that part is highly unlikely because the console is right in plain view in the living room. Well, jump cut to me calling the police, filing a report, and giving them Aaron, Chad, and Nate's name and their phone numbers. I then get a message yesterday from Aaron asking if I did call the police and file a report. And you know what? I told him yes, and that I won't be saying anything further. Well, he understood and really wanted to help me find it. I then get a message this morning from Chad saying, "How dare you accuse me of stealing your crap? Aaron and I are together and you can't stand it. I know you want him, but I won't let you. Stay away from me, Aaron, and Nate. If you so much as text even hello or good morning, I will call the police and say that you're bothering us. Stay away from me." And for the record, I have my own significant other and I definitely don't want him. I said nothing to him afterwards, and I screenshotted his message and also Aaron's message about the console. And at this point, Nate has also blocked me on everything and hasn't stopped by to pick up his belongings from my place. Now, there have only been 3 people that have been in my apartment in the last 2 months besides my significant other, but we are always together. So seriously, am I the jerk for the way this all transpired, or is there something else that I could have done? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. Okay, I gotta be completely honest with you, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, it's clearly been Aaron, Chad, or Nate, like one of them clearly stole it, and like they easily could have solved this by just giving it back. They could have given the console back and that would have solved everything. But instead, they're trying to be like, I can't believe you did this. Don't ever call us again or we will call the police. And you know for a fact that's an empty kind of promise. They're not gonna do anything. They're just pissed off that you caught them in the act of stealing your crap, and now they're gonna have to account for it when the cops show up. Which, by the way, if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. It literally had to have been one of those 3 people. They're the only people that had access to your house, and you have cameras around. So you clearly would have known if someone came into your house, or you probably would have noticed if someone, like, I don't know, had taken something out of your house through like a window. Clearly a cat burglar didn't like break in through a window, so it's obviously gotta be one of those 3. So no, you're not the jerk. I honestly would have done the exact same thing because your friends are acting incredibly sketchy, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. My entitled college roommates, as well as her friends, all keep eating my food constantly, as they are constantly eating all of my food prep, despite the fact that I've begged them to please stop doing that. So I decided to get some revenge by making some spaghetti that also had pig brain in it, giving these women the surprise of a lifetime when I revealed exactly what they're eating. And I've honestly never felt better in my life about getting back at anybody before. Here's how I did it. Okay, so I was in college full-time and working full-time, so I had little time to do any meal prep. I would make enough meals for a few days and then store them on my designated shelf in our shared dorm fridge. I'd come home from a very long day and just want to eat and relax, but I'd almost always have no food left. And 9 times out of 10, I would walk in on my roommates eating my meals. They would even have the guts to say how good it tasted and that they're sad there wasn't more. I've asked over and over to stop eating my food, but no, they just simply wouldn't listen. So I went home to my parents' house and I made a lot of spaghetti. And this was seriously some good spaghetti. And I did it this way knowing that they would most certainly eat the whole thing. Well, sure enough, I get home to my dorm after a long day, and these 3, not even my roommates, are standing in the kitchen eating my spaghetti, and the huge bowl is almost gone. The one girl says how much she loves it and wants to know how I made it. Well, I straight-faced tell her that it's a common meal we make on the farm. We go to the butcher and get head cheese, and that's the meat in the spaghetti. Now, she was really confused because they're city kids and didn't know what head cheese was. So I answered by saying, well, it's pig brains. It's really good, isn't it? That's what most of my meals are made from. Well, when I said that, she throws my bowl of spaghetti down and runs to the bathroom, puking literally everywhere. The others also took off out of the dorm room running as well. And that's how I ended them stealing my food with such petty, sweet revenge. Nobody ever touched my food ever again, nor did they ever talk to me ever again, which for me was a complete win. This is probably the craziest way to get revenge on someone I've ever heard in my life. Like, my God, that has got to be like some sinister stuff, dude. Like, I can't imagine doing that. And sure, brain is edible, I guess, but I'm never gonna eat that, dude. That's crazy. Like, don't get me wrong, this is hilarious. Like, I think what you did is brilliant, but there's no way I would ever do something like that, dude. That's like way beyond my scope of practice. And with all things considered and the fact that you've tried to resolve this like a normal human being, I don't blame you for being like, okay, we're gonna take extreme measures. Like, these people were stealing your food. Like, that just is messed up in my opinion. You're probably a poor college student and you have like no money and you're working full time and going to college full time. Like, life is rough when you're doing that. So for you to come home and see like, oh good, my roommates and other people I don't know are eating all my food. Like, I'm pretty sure I would snap as well in this kind of situation and be like, oh, enough is enough. But I think I can confidently say I would never be like, okay, I'm gonna make them eat brains. Like, that's some crazy stuff there, dude. So good for you for getting your petty revenge, because these people literally became zombies without realizing it, and that is hilarious to me. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not covering my coworker's shift when she had a family emergency that turned out to be a concert she went to instead? Because right now I feel like I got manipulated hard, and I honestly don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. To start things out, I'm a 28-year-old male and I work at a restaurant. My coworker, who we will call Jessica, asked me to cover her Saturday night shift because of a family emergency. Now, I had plans with my girlfriend, but Jessica seemed really upset and said it was urgent, so I disagreed. Now, Saturday night was brutal. We were slammed and I worked a double shift. Well, on Sunday morning, I'm scrolling Instagram and I see Jessica's story from the night before. And this is where I found out that she was at a Harry Styles concert with her friends, posting videos and clearly having a good time. Now, when I saw this, I was furious. I confronted her Monday and she got defensive, saying her cousin had an extra ticket and she needed to de-stress after her family drama. When I asked what the emergency was, she said her parents were fighting and she couldn't handle being home. But I told her that wasn't an emergency, and she basically lied to get me to cover her shift. She then said I was being unsympathetic and that I don't understand her family situation. And you know what? Other coworkers are now taking sides. My manager found out and she's making Jessica pay me back for the shift, but she's telling everyone I'm a snitch who got her in trouble. Some people agree with me and others think I should have just minded my own business since I already worked the shift. I feel like I was manipulated into giving up my weekend for her concert, but maybe I should have just let it go. I mean, she is young and maybe I was just a little too harsh on her. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now I'm not sure what's going on. No, you're not the jerk. This is some weird, insane behavior. You mean to tell me that she tried to be like, oh, this is a family emergency, and then she turns around and goes to a Harry Styles concert? Like, dude, that's not an emergency. I totally understand that you're like, man, my family life is so hard. But for her to then turn around and be like, my only way to de-stress is by going to see Harry Styles. You just don't understand. And it's like, dude, clearly I don't understand, and I don't think I want to understand, because you practically lied to your coworker just to go to this concert. Like, that's all that's going on here, and it kind of seems like she admits that by being like, oh, you snitched on me. So no, you're not the jerk, because Jessica is being incredibly toxic. An entitled mom lets her kids run wild and then gets mad at me because I didn't let them touch my food, resulting in one of the craziest interactions I've ever had in my life, as this Karen tried to claim that I was taking some kind of illegal substance. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a 23-year-old male from the Netherlands, and I went to McDonald's with my fiance for a chill meal. We are child-free, but I'm genuinely fine with kids, you know, as long as they behave. Now for me, I'm a punk with tattoos and piercings, so I get stared at by kids often, and this just doesn't bother me. But what does bother me is kids screaming, running around, throwing toys, and climbing on furniture while the parents sit back like it's a spa. And you know what? That's exactly what happened here. Two young kids were literally using tables and chairs as a jungle gym. They were yelling and they were throwing a toy car. There was even an iPad on their table, but they completely ignored it. The three moms, with one of them being the Karen leader, paid absolutely no attention to any of this. And these kids kept running right up to our table. So we turned a chair to block the path and I set up a barrier with a few more. I honestly just wanted to eat in peace. And that's when the Karen gets up with her goblins and storms over. She looks at us and says, "Is there a problem?" I respond by saying, "Yeah, your kids keep running up to us, so I block the table." The entitled Karen says, "You're looking at them strange. You're unfriendly." And I said, "No, lady, I'm just trying to eat my food." She then starts yelling at me. "This is McDonald's, not a 5-star restaurant. This is the Amsterdam ghetto." And I said to her, "Yeah, and it's not a playground either. Control your kids." She then hits me by saying, "This is the Netherlands. We speak Dutch here." But I responded back by saying, "Then why are you speaking to me in English?" But at this point, this is when she went full Karen mode on me. She then screamed out, "Are you on some kind of substance? It looks like you are." So I just sarcastically responded back and said, "Yes, I am, and I'm using the worst ones too." Well, she didn't like that response because she screamed back, "Screw you," and she flipped me off as she stormed back. Now, I stayed calm and I didn't raise my voice once. But before leaving, just out of spite, I placed my ADHD medication on top of my ice cream so that she could see it. Then I jokingly said, "Oh, we should try some other substances tonight." And I did this as we walked out. Now, I never insulted her or her kids first. I didn't yell, and instead, I just matched her energy, and I said what the staff couldn't. Now, some of my friends said that I was way too much, and others say that I handled it like a pro. So seriously, please let me know if I'm the jerk here, because honestly, I'm not sure if I'm in the wrong. Okay, I want to echo what some of the people in the comments section of this post said, and basically reiterate that yeah, I hate people who act like this. They let their kids run all over the place, and they ruin basically any eating establishment for everyone around them. Like seriously, people are trying to eat in peace. They're not trying to deal with your garbage. Like you're the one allowing these little brats to disturb everybody around them, not the other way around, dude. And I just love the fact that she's like, "Oh wow, you look different, so you're unfriendly and we don't like you." Like, dude, just mind your own business. People can have tattoos and have piercings, like that's completely fine. What isn't fine is allowing your kids to scream and run around and disrupt other people. You know, the very people who were not bothering you in the first place. So no, you did not do anything wrong. You defended yourself and you stood up for yourself when this lady was acting crazy. And in my opinion, if anybody's on some kind of substance, it's absolutely this Karen and not you. Am I the jerk for not catering to my nephew's pickiness? Because literally, I can't get anything right, and I'm honestly starting to lose my mind because I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, to start things out, my sister-in-law is staying with us for a few months while they move, and honestly, it's been tough. I work from home while she's a stay-at-home mom, so she is at home with me and her kids. Honestly, I don't mind them here much. My kid loves her cousins, and it's nice having someone to talk to at home during the day. But the tough part is cooking for them. Not only am I cooking double the amount I'm used to, but I also have to figure out what to make for them. Usually, I cook one dish and then we just all eat it. No complaints or choice otherwise because that's just how I grew up, and I never saw a problem with it. I don't force feed anybody, I just set the bowl in front of them and they eat as much as they want. And it's great, my daughter eats everything and rarely expresses she doesn't like something. But my sister-in-law's kids are very picky. They don't like tomato sauce, they don't like veggies, they don't like melted cheese, they don't like mayonnaise on their burger but they do on their sandwich, they don't like soggy cereal, and honestly the list just goes on and on. Every day I try to make something they like. I made pancakes once and my sister-in-law was like, "Oh, what's the recipe that you use?" My oldest only eats a specific one. Like when she walks in, she goes over the top to explain to this 6-year-old that this is a different recipe and that now he's gonna have to try it. But of course he refuses to try it until she forces him to take a bite, and then he just throws a fit because he doesn't like it. Meanwhile, the rest of the kids are just eating quietly at the table. Any meal I make, I'm already expecting her to say something about it. Yesterday, I made sliders hoping that would be fine. But no, she asked me to make half of them specific to the older child's taste. No cheese or sauce, just bread and meat. And even still, he just wouldn't eat it. And this is because, well, he didn't know about the taste. Anyways, I've been already cooking with way less vegetables than I usually do, and I'm honestly at my wit's end. But I refuse to cook mac and cheese boxes and no sauce pizza every single night. My freezer and pantry are all filled with processed food. And we've got snacks that we usually don't have because her kids don't snack on fruits and vegetables. They snack on chips and donuts. And I'm seriously not even kidding. I have not seen her kids consume any fruit or vegetables for the past few days. So am I the jerk for not catering to their pickiness? I'm trying to keep balanced meals for my own family, and I refuse to change that just because they don't want to eat it. What should I do? Oh man, this is so annoying. You know for a fact the sister-in-law is making this worse by saying anything. Those kids aren't going to know what's different about it. They're going to be like, "Oh cool, pancakes, let me eat some, thanks." And then chances are they're just going to eat it and then there's not going to be any problems. I'm even willing to bet that there are no problems and it's the mom who's making the problems. Like this isn't something the kids want, it's something that she wants for her kids, and not the other way around. She's fabricating problems for like no reason, and that is so obnoxious in my opinion. So if I was in your shoes, I would be like, "Look, I'm gonna cook for my family and you're gonna cook for yours. Because clearly I can't get any of this right and you're just gonna have to pick it up and do it yourself. Because this is ridiculous. Like you're not doing anything wrong, you're cooking very basic stuff, and it's not like you're doing anything that's out of the ordinary. And the fact that it's not right is completely on your sister-in-law and not you." An entitled jerk coming to see my family literally wants her friend to have the plane wait for her, all because she was late and refused to plan on time. And I'm honestly so blown away by this level of entitlement because I've never seen anything like this before in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by giving some background information. A couple of years ago, my parents got a new summer house in southern Turkey and decided to throw a big New Year's party. So they invited all their friends, but they ended up inviting too many people that I wasn't even allowed to have a +1, which okay, that's completely fine. I mean, that's life. It's not that big of a deal. The 31st of December was on Sunday, so the plan was for everyone to get there on Friday night by plane. I took an earlier flight to avoid traffic to reach the airport and just to avoid the crowds at the airport. It usually takes about 30 minutes for me to reach the airport, but I left the office an hour before just to make sure. Anyways, when I arrived, my mom pulled me aside and told me that the daughter of one of the invited families decided to invite her friend without asking anyone. And I was pissed as I, the daughter of the host, is not allowed to bring anyone, but someone else just thought it was okay to invite a person that no one ever heard of, let alone met. But the real kicker starts after this. These two girls, let's call them Amanda for the daughter and Diana for the unexpected +1, had to take a flight at around 8:00 p.m. But at about 7:30 p.m., Amanda's calling her mom, telling her that Diana is going to miss the flight due to heavy traffic. Her mom just says, "Okay, don't panic. You go ahead and board the plane and Diana can just take the next flight." And honestly, so far so good. Then Diana calls. She's in full-blown panic mode, crying and screaming that it's Amanda's fault that she missed the plane by 15 minutes. Apparently, Amanda should have just made the flight attendants not close the door and make the whole plane just wait for her. And when I heard this, I was like, is she seriously being for real? And yes, she truly believes that Amanda could have gotten the plane to wait for her. Upon questioning her a little bit more, I learned that even though she lives like near the metro station that takes you directly to the airport, she chose to take a taxi, 45 5 minutes before boarding time for a trip that usually lasts 1 hour. But she keeps claiming that she should have just been able to catch the plane if Amanda made the plane wait for her. When I asked her how she was supposed to do that, she said Amanda could have waited by the door and not let them close it. And honestly, how entitled can you possibly be to think that just because you are terrible to plan ahead on one of the busiest nights of the year, and because you left late, somehow a plane full of people must wait for you as well? It's honestly mind-blowing and one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, this is some stupid entitlement. You really think that the whole plane's gonna wait for you just because you can't plan? Like, dude, that's not gonna happen for a second, and you are crazy if you think it is. So yeah, I completely agree with the original poster because this is a very weird situation. My coworker got her license suspended, so I've been giving her a ride to work as she does live close by. But now it's become obvious that she's been taking advantage of my kindness, as she is literally starting to ask way too much of me in a way that's really making me uncomfortable. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I'm a 24-year-old female and I work with this girl who we will call Bethany, who got her license suspended last month for way too many speeding tickets. She lives about 15 minutes away from me and asked if I could give her rides to work until she gets it back in 6 months. Now, at first I said yes because I felt bad for her, but it's becoming a huge pain in the neck. She's never ready when I get there, usually making me wait 10 to 15 minutes, which honestly makes me late. On top of that, she doesn't offer gas money, even though it adds 30 minutes to my commute each day. And she always wants to stop places on the way home since we're already out. The final straw was Friday when she asked if we could pick up her friend Jessica from the airport after work. When I said no because it was completely out of the way, she got mad and said I was being unreasonable since, according to her, it's not like I'm asking for much. Well, yesterday I told her I couldn't give her rides anymore and she would need to find other arrangements. When I said this, she started crying and said I was abandoning her when she needed help the most. And now she's telling everyone at work that I'm selfish and that I'm being heartless. I feel bad, but also I feel like she's taking advantage of me. And at this point, I really just don't know what to do. Yeah, this is one of those scenarios where the friend is absolutely taking advantage of you, and she is literally just using you for a ride. And the way she's doing it is so telling. Like, she's starting off small by being like, oh yeah, let's stop here on the way. We're already out, it's not a big deal. Not to mention her not giving you any money for gas, like that's super sketchy. You would think that's like the bare minimum thing she would do just to like make up for the fact that she's taking all your time and money. But for her to be like, oh, you're abandoning me after you decided, no, I'm not gonna drive to the airport, like she is being super manipulative, it's honestly not even funny. So no, you're definitely not the jerk because this coworker is being incredibly rude. Today, I mocked a customer into leaving the store after he decided to get an attitude with me about how busy we were, because today I simply wasn't having it and this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work in a discount store, which is a fairly large store that sells a variety of items with 5 checkout lanes. Now today, there were only 2 of us on the tills and it was very busy. Long queues for the both of us, no time for breaks, because we just didn't have anyone else who could step in and help. So customers were very grouchy and very impatient, which is honestly the usual for me. So I'm serving, trying to get as many people through the line as possible, and my gaze lands on a guy who's just kind of like lingering along the fringes of the queue. He's not joining in and just standing in place like he's looking to jump the line or something like that. He sees me looking and then calls over really loudly, "Can't you just open up another register?" And I'm just like, are you kidding right now, man? If I had anyone else who could be on the tills, they would be on the tills. We're not hiding able-bodied employees up our butts to inconvenience you. And honestly, I'm not sure why this guy specifically made me snap. I get asked this so many times when it gets busy, and normally I can just control myself and just smile and apologize politely no matter how much I hate that question. But today was just way different. I then look at him and I'm just like, wow, that's such a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? I then call out my supervisor and I say, hey Colin, why don't we just get someone else on the till? My supervisor doesn't look back at me, but instead just answers and says, we don't have anyone to help. So I look back at the guy, sarcastic smile completely gone, with a deadpan look, and I say, we don't have anyone. He then looks incredulous for a moment and then replies by saying, this long line and there's only 2 of you? But I just smile again and I say, welcome to retail, all chipper-like, before returning my attention to my customer, whose items I assure you had not stopped scanning during the momentary bout of pettiness. The next time I look over, he's then walking out of the shop with his items just dropped on the floor and everything. And yes, I could have been nicer and I could have been more respectful, but honestly, I do not regret the way I acted in the slightest. Oh yeah, I love this so much because customers like this are so annoying. You're literally packed with 2 lines and this guy's like, this is too long for me. You need to open up another register. And it's like, oh, you caught us. Let's get those employees we're hiding in the back. Like seriously, what a dumb question and what a dumb way to approach pretty much anybody working their job. Do you really think they don't have people available and ready to like help out and do their job? Like seriously, get a grip. That's so annoying. So yeah, you didn't do anything wrong because this guy absolutely deserved to get mocked because his question was really dumb and very condescending. An entitled jerk tries to scam my restaurant by trying to claim that we broke the windshield of his car with our menus, even though that literally is not possible. Here's what happened. Okay, when I was a teenager, a local restaurant paid kids to put their menus on car windshields. I would sometimes hang out in the restaurant because the menus were typically delivered the same days each month, and jobs were first come, first served. So if you came early, you could get as many menus as you wanted, rather than hoping that enough would be left so that you can earn some decent money. Now, occasionally, someone would approach me and complain about me leaving things on their car, but we were just instructed to apologize to those people and give them a generous coupon for their inconvenience. But ironically enough, the ones who got pissed off were usually the ones who became customers, because the coupon we gave was really solid. One day, I was hanging out in the dining area waiting for flyers, and a young man, maybe in his early 30s at most, stormed in and started yelling for the manager. Now, this place was chronically understaffed, so the closest thing we had was a veteran server who had been with the restaurant for maybe about 10 years. The server basically said, "Okay, where's the fire? How can I help you? Please stop shouting in the dining area." We can make out that the guy was upset about his windshield between him shouting and some of the awful things he was saying. Now, we figured he didn't like having a menu put on his car, but he kept insisting that the server go outside to look, and I decided to follow out simply out of morbid curiosity. When I went out there, I saw a little Miata 2-seater convertible was parked outside with a strikingly amateur yellow wrap job and a windshield fully shattered. Now, the server was pretty confused at that point, and he asked the guy, "Wait a second, you don't seriously think one of our teenage menu kids did this, do you?" To which the driver shouted back and said, "Of course he did. He slammed the menu down so hard he trashed my windshield. This is my only vehicle. I need to be reimbursed." Now, the server tried to calm him down and was eventually able to discern that his assertion was that there was a menu on or around his windshield was smashed, and that we must be to blame. The server then looked at the guy and said, "Look, a one-page paper menu clearly didn't do that. It looks like someone maybe tried to carjack you. You should probably file a police report." Well, when the server said that, this got this guy really riled up, because calling the police was his ace in the whole intimidation tactic, as he was literally shouting incoherently. He then shouted back by saying, "Don't try reverse psychology on me. I am going to call the police." Now, the server had no skin in the game either way, because they didn't place the menus or even own the restaurant, so they coolly responded, "Okay, good idea, you should do that. Feel free to use our phone if you need it, I guess." And the guy got all red-faced and worked up, saying that we had to cut him a check there and then, or we would be breaking even more laws, harping that our negligence was to blame. The server then told him there was nothing more we could do under these circumstances, and then he took off. Now, I didn't hear anything more about it for a bit. I got my batch of menus and I came back at the end of the day to get paid, and apparently while I was out, a nightlife business that sometimes places flyers called us to warn us about a guy that was trying to say their flyer trashed his windshield and that they believed it was a scam. So after we heard that, we went ahead and called the police. And sure enough, the responding officer said the guy was known to them and that this was just the latest thing he was trying to do in a string of bottom barrel grifting, which honestly, overall is incredibly mind-blowing. Oh man, imagine being so stupid that you really thought, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna get these guys once and for all. They're gonna pay for everything that happened to my windshield." When in reality, this guy probably broke his own windshield just to try and scam people. Or it got broken in some way and he's like, "Okay, this is my chance." Like, what a loser. Seriously, get a life. So I just love the fact that the cops were well aware of this weirdo, because these types of methods to try and scam people is just completely messed up. My toxic friend goes on a spending spree after she steals my debit card as well as some of my jewelry straight out of my house, racking up over $1,000 in expenses and overdraft fees. But after finding out the truth, I decided that I was going to get some revenge by forcing her to pay me back, otherwise I was going to the police. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened many years ago. At the time, I was young, married, and pregnant, the perfect trifecta to be socially ostracized. Most people felt that I had married up, as my husband came from money and had a good job, which meant, unlike most young married people, I had a beautiful home and nice things. Just about everyone my age was either in college or still in high school. Most of the people I knew who were married and pregnant were much older than me, and so I was having a hard time. Naively, I initially tried to make and maintain friendships with people my age or even just a little bit younger, but this was a problem for so many reasons, not the least of which being that when you're young, lonely, and have nice things that most other young people don't have, you can draw the wrong kinds of friends. I developed a friendship with a girl who was finishing up her senior year in high school. We had gone to the same school and she was a freshman when I was a junior, and we had some friends in common. She started coming over to my house and hanging out, and one evening she asked if she could bring a friend over to the house with her for dinner, and I said sure. At one point that evening, my friend's guest asked to use the restroom. My husband and I explained where it was, but we didn't escort her, trusting that she would find it herself. She then walked around the corner, basically in the direction of said bathroom, and came back shortly afterwards. The night then ended with no clue on my husband's part or on my part that things were about to get incredibly crazy. crazy. About a week later, I couldn't find a pair of earrings I wore on my wedding day. My husband bought me a pearl and diamond necklace and earring set as a wedding gift. We tore the house apart looking for them, but to no avail. My husband then said that I must have set them down somewhere and just forgotten, but that we would eventually find them. Now, I was anxious about it, but I knew the last place I'd had them was at home. We also had not done any major deep cleaning or vacuuming, so I knew they had to be around here somewhere. A few weeks went by, and I suddenly noticed one of our checking accounts that we set up as a business account for my husband when he was contemplating starting a side hustle was massively in the negative, to the tune of almost $1,000. Most of it was overdraft fees, because we didn't keep much of a balance in that account anyways. I immediately called my husband and I told him that we had a large negative balance in that specific account. Now, neither of us had been using the debit card for that account mistakenly, so we began reviewing the charges. Well, all the charges were for a store at the same local mall, and these were for places that teenage girls would typically shop at. There were dozens of small to medium purchases, each followed by a $25 overdraft fee once they spent the initial balance we kept in the account to avoid penalties. And this all added up to about $1,000 in total theft. Now, we had not had many people over, and we specifically kept the debit card in our master bedroom, so it was pretty easy to figure out what happened and just who was responsible. It also wasn't that much of a hop, skip, and a jump to also figure out where my earrings went. Now, the word pissed off doesn't begin to describe my mental state. I had been incredibly generous with this friend. I had welcomed her into my home. I had cooked for her and her friend. I called every store in the mall, and I began asking if they had any security cameras. Now, most did not, but one store had just recently installed security cameras due to issues they had with shoplifting. They let me know that while they had recorded footage from the day in question, they could not hand it over to me, but they would be happy to hand it over to me if I filed a police report. I then contacted my bank, and I asked them what the procedure was for declaring fraudulent charges and reversing them. They then indicated that an investigation would need to take place and that I had a limited amount of time to make that decision before I permanently assumed responsibility for those charges. They also made it clear that the overdraft fees would not be reversed unless I declare the charges were fraudulent. Well, I did more digging, and $2,000 in theft was the cutoff for felony charges. My earrings were worth approximately $800, and we had about $1,000 worth of charges plus overdraft fees in the checking account. So with this, I contacted my friend, and I let her know the horrible news that someone we had had over at the house had stolen from me. I explained to her that my pearl earrings from my wedding had gone missing, and that someone had stolen my debit card that we kept upstairs in my master bedroom before running up charges at the mall. Well, when I said that, she seemed very sympathetic and said, "Oh, well, that is just so terrible." But it's here that I told her a very nice little white lie, that we were going to pursue felony charges, since between the earrings, the charges at all of these stores, and the many overdraft fees, more than $2,000 worth of theft had occurred. Well, when I said this, she was quick to chime in with the information that she was pretty sure there would be no way to prove who'd used the debit card, as the store malls that I'd mentioned didn't have any security cameras. And you know what? When she said that, a light went off in my head. Bingo. Thanks for all but confirming what I already knew. That's when I helpfully supplied the information that one of the stores had just recently installed security cameras, and that they were preparing to hand it over to the police once I filed a report. After I said that, she got extremely quiet and said that she had to go. Not so surprisingly later, she called me back shortly after that and asked if she could come over. She then showed up within 30 minutes, not only with my pearl earrings and debit card, but also a small diamond ring I inherited from my great aunt that I had no clue was missing. And this is something I had never worn, and I primarily held on to it for sentimental reasons. She then had a very well-rehearsed little explanation. She said she hadn't stolen anything from me. Apparently, her friend snuck up my stairs into my bedroom and stole some of my jewelry and my debit card under the pretense of using my bathroom. When I pointed out that clearly she knew about the theft, and yet she said and did nothing, she began crying, arguing that she was in a difficult spot. I didn't want to betray my friend, meaning that clearly I didn't qualify as a friend. She then confessed that there were multiple others involved in shopping sprees at the mall, including her, meaning that she seemed quite content to participate in racking up charges on my checking account along with her friend, despite claiming that she had not stolen from me. I was honestly devastated by the near loss of sentimental pieces of jewelry, which I felt incredibly fortunate to have back, and this made it incredibly easy for me to shut down her attempts at emotional manipulation. I made it clear under no uncertain terms that as far as I was concerned, whatever happened next was up to them, and that I had no problem seeing them all charged with felony robbery. Now, 2 of the 4 were 17 and the others were 18, so felony charges could have been a pretty big deal. I then demanded all the names and the parents' contact information, and I made it clear that if I didn't get it, I was absolutely going to the police. I called the parents and informed them of what their little angels had done, and I also informed the parents that I would provide their children children with the opportunity to repay the full amount of what they charged on my checking account, plus all the overdraft fees. I then made it clear that this was a time-sensitive offer that expired with about a week of buffer time in terms of the deadlines to file fraud with my bank in case they failed to follow through somehow. Well, needless to say, the parents were horrified by the behavior and extremely grateful for my offer. And you know what? It was quite satisfying to know that the four of them had to get jobs and work long hours over the next few weeks just to pay me back. At one point, my former friend tried questioning me about the amount they owed and actually claimed it seemed like way more than what they spent and that this was just not fair. But I took great pleasure in explaining how they racked up overdraft fees that the bank refused to reverse unless I filed fraud claims. Their little shopping spree had cost them about 3 to 4 times what it would have been if they had just used their own money. My former friend also tried to ask for more time and insisted it was too hard to pay me back in such a short period of time. I then took great pleasure in asking her point blank why I should even trust them or take a risk on them given their recent actions. And when I said that, that literally shut her up pretty quickly. Ultimately, I received all my jewelry back and I was repaid for all of the charges and the overdraft fees. And thankfully, I never spoke to any of them ever again. Oh my gosh, dude, I would lose my mind if this was me. Like, this is some crazy stuff, dude. They literally robbed you. They went up to your bathroom and just stole stuff, straight up took your debit card and some jewelry and said, oh my gosh, we're gonna have so much fun. Like, honestly, how calculated can you possibly get? These people knew exactly what they were doing. They tried to go to stores that had no cameras or anything like that, and they probably thought for a second they were scot-free. Oh yeah, we're gonna get away with this. Like, holy crap, talk about having no moral compass. And no, them being teenagers has nothing to do with this. It doesn't take a genius to say, okay, maybe I shouldn't rob my friend. And I also just love the fact that this idiot's trying to be like, I need more time. This isn't nearly enough time to get this done. This isn't fair. But it's like, dude, none of this is fair. You literally robbed me blind, bro. Like, what are you talking about? That's what's not fair, not the fact that you have to work to try and pay off your debt. So yeah, I think this whole scenario is hilarious and these people deserve to get punished, especially if they're gonna lie to your face and try and get away with it in the way that they did. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled Karen screams at me and my mom for not supervising her kids while we were at the pool, leaving me and my mom stunned that anyone would think we would be a free babysitter for kids that we literally don't even know. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I was 25 years old when I was on a beach vacation with my mom. We were in the shared condo pool enjoying a quiet swim when a group of unsupervised kids, maybe between the ages of 6 and 10 years old, jump in and join the pool. And there were no adults anywhere except for me and my mom. Within minutes, they started doing really dangerous stuff. Stuff like diving into the shallow end and holding each other under the water. Well, as a result, we got out because we didn't want anyone to think that we were responsible if one of them got hurt. And while we were drying off, a woman finally walked in. We politely asked if they were her kids and then mentioned what they were doing. Now, instead of, oh, I don't know, parenting them, she went ballistic on us in front of the children. She was screaming and cussing, blaming us for not supervising her kids, like it was somehow our job to play lifeguard just because we were nearby adults. And then she just straight up left. Like, fully ignored them again. But my mom and I just went back to our condo and stayed away from the pool after that, because apparently some people think that a public pool actually means free babysitting. Okay, I cannot stand people like this at all. Dude, take care of your kids. Why are they at the pool in the first place without you present? And no, just because I'm an adult doesn't mean I'm gonna watch your stupid bratty children. Like, why would I be responsible for any of this in the first place? Like, you've got to be kidding me. It's also incredibly upsetting that she's trying to sit there and be like, you are the problem here. I can't believe that you didn't watch my children. This is your fault they're acting this way. And it's like, no, dude, this is your fault. You're a terrible parent and clearly you don't know how to be one. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would have absolutely avoided the pool after that, because there's no way I will ever be responsible if these idiot kids end up hurting themselves. Like, that is not my problem and I'm not gonna deal with it. Am I the jerk for ordering a takeaway meal after my in-laws ate my food and called me a picky eater? Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm a 30-year-old female and I had a barbecue with my partner's family about a week ago. Both me and my partner brought food for ourselves and to share as well, since I don't eat certain things. For example, I don't eat meat apart from bird meat, fish, or seafood. I also can't have too much lactose products or anything too oily, and I'm also intolerant to a couple of fruits. And this is because with all of the above, I get very nasty stomach issues if consumed. The food we brought included some chicken pieces, some wings, and some vegetables like asparagus, potatoes, and corn. After we got settled, I went to grab some of the food we brought to find out that it was all gone. I have questioned my father-in-law about it as he was in charge of the grill, and he told me other family members ate it first. Now, I have pointed out that it was the food we brought with ourselves and intended to eat ourselves too, but both my father and mother-in-law dismissed me and said that I'm being a picky eater since there's still food on the table, and this is stuff like beef and pork, which by the way, I can't eat. Well, I got really annoyed and I decided to just order some takeaway for myself. Well, my in-laws then called me a jerk since I haven't asked anyone else if they wanted to order too, and because it made some of the kids upset. And also, the kids in question are all between the ages of 14 and 35, so they're hardly kids if you ask me. Well, my partner is now torn, with my in-laws still making snarky comments and calling me a spoiled princess. Now, it's important to make some notes about this because, as I said in the beginning, both me and my partner brought food for ourselves and to share, meaning that we had 3 full bags in total, and where I come from, that's a common thing to do. My father-in-law was in charge of the grill due to his own rules, and he had splurged on an expensive new one not so long ago and would refuse anyone near it. Also, they knew about my restrictions, and that some of the food was specifically mine. These people have known me for nearly a decade, and we had plenty of meals and barbecues together, and the restrictions were never a problem. So seriously, am I the jerk here? Because right now, I'm not sure what to do. Okay, in my opinion, it really seems like these people are targeting you in some kind of way, because if they've known you for nearly a decade and they definitely know about your dietary restrictions, then they wouldn't be like, oh yeah, just eat the food, she's being way too picky. Like, that's really toxic in my opinion. I just don't like that at all. And it honestly begs the question, like, why are they acting that way? And why are they trying to make you the bad guy when they knew for a fact, hey, this is her food and she's the only one that can really have this? Not to mention the fact that you had enough that you could share, but everybody ate everything in the process. And honestly, I don't blame you for like ordering food for yourself, because if my food had gotten eaten by everybody else at the party and there was nothing else I could eat, then guess what? I'm gonna order food and eat it there. Like, what's going on right now? I'm sure your stuff was labeled and these people just took advantage of that and said, okay, we're gonna eat all of it. So no, if these people want to be petty, then guess what? You could be petty right back by ordering food. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, and I think your in-laws are being incredibly toxic. An entitled idiotic party literally admits that our restaurant is full, and then in the same sentence complains that we don't have a table for them, leaving me questioning my entire reality. Here's what's going on. Okay, to start things out, a 3-top walks in at the tail end of a rush when nearly all my tables are full and there's not much seating left at the bar rail. There's no host on this particular day, so I greet them at the door. Well, when they walk in, they immediately comment on how full it is, literally by saying, wow, it's really full in here. But I just nod and agree with them because yeah, we were packed. They asked for a table for 3, and I have one singular table that is not already seated that fits 3 people, and it has a reserve sign physically placed on the table. The reservation is due in about 15 minutes, so there truly is no wiggle room. I then offer them a spot at the bar or a 30-minute wait, which immediately changes the tone in the room. They look at me and say, wow, really? You won't seat us anywhere? And it's like, okay, I see we've forgotten how to use our eyes in the last 30 seconds since you walked in, and literally said, oh yeah, it's so full in here. They then point at the table reserved like I somehow haven't noticed it, and said, well, why not there? And I tell them I have a reservation, and they just give me a dramatic eye roll. They then start asking if I can push a couple of 2-tops together for them. This is a very small restaurant, only 11 tables in total, and there are 3 2-tops in the aisles between the larger tables and the bar, and they pretty clearly max out the available space in the restaurant. Now, the host stand is so close to the door, this party keeps having to move out of the way of people walking in between them. There is not 1 square foot of extra space in this place, I assure you. Pushing the 2-tops together is just very clearly not an option, both in the sense that it's definitely not safe or compliant with fire code, but also because it would take up all of our walking space between tables. They would be back to back with people sitting at the bar, like literally touching if one person leans back at all. This is a restaurant that doesn't use large food trays because they just don't fit down the aisle. Anyways, I explain all of this to them, and they look at me and tell me that they're just gonna have to go somewhere else. Then they stare at me for a good while. Well, I just look at them and I nod, and they give another dramatic eye roll and just say, wow, just wow, literally as they walk out the door. So somebody more empathetic than me, please explain their thought process. I've dealt with this kind of complaint so many times, and I'm always just flabbergasted at what they think I should do to solve the problem. Like, you can literally see there isn't a table available to you, meaning that there is literally nothing I can do to fix this. Yeah, this group was super entitled. They literally commented and said, oh wow, it's really full in here, and then tried to pretend like they were some kind of like VIP. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? You're not that important. And you didn't make a reservation, so no, you can't have the reserved table, dude. It's not for you. Like, how is it possible they can not only like confirm that yes, this place is packed, but also complain that there's no room for them? They would rather you break the fire code than wait to be seen. Like, dude, okay, if you feel that way, then feel free to leave. So this really is some stupid behavior, and I just don't blame you for being annoyed, because if I was in your shoes, I would would feel the exact same way. Today, my job literally decided that I was not allowed to ask any questions anymore to customers, resulting in utter chaos as I literally did exactly what they said. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a retail store where each sale requires on average 10 minutes of paperwork, and that's if you're fast and know what you're doing. 2 months into the job, the boss told us new hires to stop asking questions in front of the customers. The boss said that we look like clowns and that customers lose confidence. Now, the only training they provided was asking questions. They'd stick you with a customer and make you guess how to process the paperwork, and if you got stuck, you'd ask for help. They would then tell you what to click, but not why you're clicking it. And then they info dump all exceptions to the rule they just gave you. Well, this is where my malicious compliance comes into play. I literally just stopped asking questions and I take my sweet time guessing my way through all the paperwork. Now, because of this, a few things have happened. First of all, I've undercharged customers. And because I'm now taking up to 40 minutes to do this, I've actually had a customer walk out and say, look, just call me when you actually have time for me because I can't be here all day. A customer also decided not to buy. The senior employee was also mad that I didn't ask about shipping. They tried to say that I should have made an exception and ask a question anyways. Now, when I'm at the sales desk, instead of asking if we sell a product or accept insurance, I just tell callers that we don't. And this saves me from doing the work of looking them up. When I'm working the reception desk, I waste time looking up obscure insurance policies instead of just asking a senior employee. I'm also not Latino, but I do speak some Spanish. And now, when Spanish speakers call in, I only respond in English. Now, before, I would speak Spanish, and I would ask for help if I needed it. But now, because of the no question policy, I don't even ask my coworkers if they're free to take a call. I feel bad for these people though, but not too bad, because all they have to do is call back and hope that I don't answer. Because at the end of the day, this is my company's fault for literally not wanting me to ask any questions. Dude, this is like some malicious compliance that goes way beyond anything I would ever expect. Like seriously, these people literally are like, don't ask any more questions, stop it. And the original poster is just like, oh, okay, you got it. I'm not gonna ask any questions ever again. Taking this to another extreme that I honestly just did not think was possible. So good for you for getting some petty revenge and maliciously complying, because this is absolutely hilarious. An entitled Karen demands that she be allowed to butt in line, all because she was late for her flight, saying that she needs our spot way more than her, even though she should have shown up early like everybody else. Here's what's happening. Okay, so I flew into Seattle yesterday for a meeting, and then flew right back home from Seattle to Nashville today. So yeah, I'm tired like most everyone else standing in line at the car rental spot, waiting for the shuttle buses. And this line is incredibly long. When I got in line, 2 buses came for pickup, and I was still in line, but I decided I would just make the next bus. And this is honestly all good. But unfortunately, this is where the entitled family of this story comes into play. There's a mom, a dad, a grandma, and 3 kids, with all the luggage for 6 people plus a stroller and car seats. And at this point, I practically hear them say, oh God, look at this line, we're gonna miss our flight. The entitled mom of this family runs to the front of the line and asks if they can get in front. They're running so late and they would really appreciate it. But thankfully, the employee says, no, sorry, you'll have to wait at the end of it like everybody else. And mind you, the rest of the family is just standing there. They've not even gotten in line yet. So more people are coming and the line is obviously getting longer. The lady then starts walking along the line, asking if they can just bump in front, and people keep saying no. Now, just before she got to where I was, she asked this guy and his response was awesome. He said, well, instead of begging people who arrived timely and have been patiently waiting, I would suggest you just join the end of the line because at least 10 more groups of people have arrived after you and they're now literally ahead of you. And when he said this, she was livid. Her face got red and I thought she was going to blow up, but the dad grabbed her and headed to the back of the line. Needless to say, she was very unhappy. And when the bus we were on pulled away, we could see her arguing or in a heated conversation with the dad. And while I do hope they made their flight, I kind of have a bad feeling that this was a really bad travel day for that entire family. Okay, I love this so much because seriously, if you're gonna be late, you better have a backup plan. Like there's an entire line of people who are probably just as late for whatever they're going to do, but you don't see them running to the front and being like, guys, you don't get it. We're gonna be late for our flight that we didn't plan for properly. You've gotta let us go forward, please. It's like, dude, you've gotta be kidding right now. This is so stupid. Why on earth is it everybody else's fault that you're late instead of you and the rest of your family? Like if you knew you're gonna be late, you probably should have left early. You should have left with so much time to spare that you would have been bored in that airport. And I would much rather be bored out of my mind wondering what to do next than to be rushed and like freaking out that I might miss my flight. Because at the end of the day, that is only gonna be my fault and no one else's. An entitled waitress literally has it out for me, as she treats me like garbage the entire time she's serving us. Things get really crazy after she not only disrespects me and humiliates me, but also pours hot soup all over me, burning me in the process, resulting in me snapping at her in a way that I honestly never expected. Here's what happened. Okay, so this just happened and I'm coming here here to seek the advice of anyone who's willing to listen, just so I can see if I'm in the wrong here. So basically, I'm a 23-year-old male, and I was in Greece over the last week with my fiance and her mother who lives in Greece. We stayed at a resort and my fiance's mother joined us for the last 3 days of our stay. Basically, this resort has a restaurant which my wife and I are very fond of. They have a very diverse menu, so we decided to come dine here every night of our stay. The first night we ate there, we were seated by a very nice waitress before another waitress came over to take our table. Now this new waitress immediately starts talking only to my wife and not to me, asking my wife what I'll be eating and drinking and not me. And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. I just politely sit there and I give my wife a weird look. When she comes back with our salads, I try to ask her a question as I am very allergic to seafood and I wanted to know if the dish I had asked for had any. Well, the second I spoke up, she scoffs at me and in a very rude voice says, "Well, I don't know. Why didn't you read the menu?" And she said this before walking away and stepping on my foot with no apology, of course. My wife gives me a puzzled look and asks if she should confront the waitress or something like that, but I say it's fine and she probably just had a rough day or something like that. We were then served by a different waiter for the rest of the night, and we didn't see the rude waitress until the next night, where I received more of the same treatment. This time, she said a shirt like mine didn't belong in such a high-end restaurant. And just so we're clear, I had a Star Wars shirt on, and the restaurant is far from high-end. I give her a confused look, but she keeps going with her job, accidentally spilling a bit of wine on my pants, talking over me whenever I try to ask a question, and then complaining at the end of the meal that my tip of about 10% wasn't enough. This continued for the next few days, but I don't like drama, so I just didn't say anything. The night my fiance's mother arrived, the waitress was rude to me again, while making jokes about me to my fiance and her mother. Now, my fiance's mother was just as outraged as my fiance and I, and said that she would complain, but I tried telling her not to. On the last day, which was today, we were sitting enjoying our meal when the rude waitress came to our table and very visibly and purposefully knocked my soup over that I was eating onto me. Now keep in mind, she had just served it, and it was burning hot, so I obviously screamed in pain and stood up. The waitress then smirked and said something along the lines of, "Oops, stop being so dramatic, it's just soup." But when she did this, I turned to her and for the first time I yelled out. I said to her, "You've been nothing but rude to me since the day I arrived. You've insulted and belittled me, you've stepped on my feet, you poured wine and food and soup on me, and then complained about the tip not being high enough. I've had enough of you." Now I know I maybe should not have yelled, but I was so pissed off and it honestly burned. Her manager saw it and brought the rude waitress to his office for a chat, and that was the first time I've seen genuine fear and remorse on her face. Some other waiters and waitresses helped clean the soup off me, and the manager came out to personally apologize and say the meal was on him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the rude waitress get on a golf cart with her regular clothes on and her waitress outfit in hand before the golf cart departed in the direction of the reception. When we got back to our room, I overheard my fiance and her mother talking. My fiance was defending me, while her mother said that I shouldn't have raised my voice no matter how rude the waitress was. So now I'm sitting here on my bed, still burned and incredibly pissed off, and I'm wondering if I'm wrong in this situation because I seriously don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is some crazy behavior. First of all, this waitress just clearly had it out for you. And that's really strange because you didn't do anything. You're literally just going there to eat dinner and like have a good time. And this waitress, out of all the waiting staff, literally just had some kind of vendetta against you and you didn't even do anything wrong. Now, I will say the original poster let this go on way too long. You should have spoken up right then and there when she was being rude and dismissive. Like the second she's looking at your wife and not you when it comes to like ordering food, that's when I would have been like, wait a second, don't talk to me like that. Don't disrespect me. This is inappropriate. Or something like that. Like you gotta speak up. And for me, this is like a really good example that you need to defend yourself sometimes. Like you're not gonna be a bad person by saying, no, I'm not gonna take this treatment any longer. If anything, it makes you a better person by standing up and saying no more. But regardless, you did let it go on way too long, which meant her behavior was only gonna get worse over time. So yeah, you should have spoken up much sooner, but what she did was completely out of line. Like to go from pouring wine on you and like stepping on your foot all the way to burning you with soup, like dude, that is unacceptable. So no, you're not the jerk here. You didn't do anything wrong, but I really hope that waitress gets fired because she absolutely deserves that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I recently got into a car accident, but my mom still doesn't believe me when I say that I can't go to work yet, as she is constantly asking when I'm gonna pick up my next shift, despite the fact that I can't go back without a doctor's note. And right now, I'm kinda considering moving out because this is driving me nuts. Here's what's going on. Okay, honestly, the title speaks for itself. I was involved in a rear-end car accident on the 30th of June while being a passenger in the back seat of the car. I got a lawyer and I've gone to the chiropractor, and the chiropractor said I sprained my neck and my back. I have a very physically demanding demanding job, and this job constantly requires me to lift, turn, and support in excess of 100 pounds. We were in the car about 15 to 20 minutes ago, and my mom actually asked me if there were any shifts that I could pick up, but I told her no, there weren't any, and that I wasn't even 100% sure I should be working, as I haven't gotten a definitive answer from my doctor if I can even go back to work. And when I mentioned to my lawyer about my mom wanting me to go back to work too early, she told me that I'm not allowed to go back to work until my doctor specifically said I could. Right now, the claim is in the process of being paid for. My attorney just submitted all the paperwork to the at-fault insurance company, and I'm now just waiting for my settlement. But I don't know what to do because she's refusing to work and has refused to work since I got injured, putting us in financial ruin. I'm almost tempted to move out depending on how much I get because I don't want to be in this situation where she takes my money and thinks that I have to pay her bills. And that's another thing. When I get this money, she'll expect me to pay all the past due bills that she hasn't been paying. I don't know how to deal with her because she is asking me every single day, questioning whether or not there are shifts I can pick up and go do. It is constant, all day, every day. I normally can't even have a conversation with her without her asking me if I'm going to work. But if I ask her if she's going to work, she'll just say things like, well, if you're not working, then I'm not working, or something stupid like that. What should I do? Okay, I think you hit the nail on the head about the whole moving thing, because if I was in your shoes, I absolutely would move. Like seriously, think about it for a second. The way you've described your mom honestly fits the bill of someone who would take all your money. She's constantly asking if you're working, she's demanding that you pay all the bills. Like, is she stupid or something? Like, you literally need approval to go back to work, especially in an accident like this. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would be getting out of there as soon as I can, because this is some garbage that you definitely do not have to deal with. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I will not pay for my brother's college, as he literally says he can't pay for it and he's demanding that I do it instead? Here's what's going on. Okay, so I had an argument with my dad the other day, and he told me that my parents will pay for my college fully, but I would have to completely pay for my brother's entire university tuition if I want them to pay for my college. If not, I would have to take out a student loan. But I told him there's no way I can pay for someone else's college tuition right out of college. For a bit of background, we are pretty well off and we have a nice home in a gated community. My parents afford enough to go on nice trips. They pay for all my extracurriculars. I've never had to work for my family, and I can use their money to go out with my friends. I know I am extremely privileged, and I know based on my parents' line of work, they could easily help pay for my brother. My brother is a smart kid and definitely aiming for an out-of-state school. I do not think it is feasible for me to have to pay $80,000 a year with my starting salary to pay off his college tuition. I said I would definitely help out with my parents financially in other ways, but I simply could not do this. I also have been applying to scholarships so my parents don't have to pay for my college fully. However, my dad said that I'm being selfish and the financial burden on them is too high. So am I the jerk here, because I honestly just don't know if I'm wrong or not? Okay, first of all, I don't think I would ever take any money from my parents if this is the way they're gonna act. Like, they really expect you to pay for your brother's college tuition if you take their money? Like, why on earth would anybody take that deal? Like, just pay for your own college. Take out loans if you really want to go to college and figure it out that way. Because there is no way I would ever want to pay for someone else's college experience. Like, what's going on right now? Or better yet, just split the money down the middle and then you and your brother can literally have something towards college instead of you having the entire burden placed on your shoulders. Like, that's dumb. And I gotta be honest, and I think other people in the comments get this, but it's incredibly unlikely to get a great paying job when you're fresh out of college. Especially in this economy, dude. Like, what is going on? So no, you're not the jerk for turning him down, and I think the way he's acting is completely irrational. An entitled jerk comes into my hospital demanding to have a man remove his cast because he doesn't think any of the women are qualified to do it. So I decide to step up and help out while also guaranteeing that this guy has an anxiety attack the entire time. Here's how I did it. When I was 22 and a new paramedic, I worked at a service based in a small hospital. I tried to spend some of my time between calls in the ER, orthopedic clinic, or day surgery helping out and getting practice with my skills. I developed a good working relationship with the nurses who were 100% female. I tried to do the things like linen changes so they could have a break. I was also a reliable coffee delivery service with no delivery fee. They helped me by letting me practice my skills and teaching me different things. Well, one day we had a patient who was in to have his cast removed, and apparently he was a new resident to our country. Now, I welcome immigrants. Both of my parents immigrated to my country, but this gentleman, however, did not wholly embrace our cultural views of women's equality. I believe he grew up in a place where women's rights are trampled by religion and by laws. I don't support misogynistic beliefs no matter how grounded they are in a culture, most especially when I'm not in that culture at present. He made a big deal of not addressing nurses directly, only the doctor who was a man. He made demands for the doctor to remove his cast, which wasn't going to happen, and that apparently they get paid way too much for that. He went on and on about having someone qualified, which apparently wasn't a registered nurse. But I'm pretty sure the qualification he was looking for was that they had to be a man. So anyways, I ended up volunteering, and I also had cut off tons of casts, so it was really dead easy if you ask me. Because if you can master crayons, then you can definitely cut off a cast. I entered his room and I boldly claimed that I was here to remove his cast. His English was fluent enough, so I could tell he was pleased to be addressed by a man, and with that, he let me begin. Now, I was about a fourth of the way in when he made some comments about being finally given someone qualified to do the task. Annoyed by his less than progressive attitude towards the wonderful nurses I know and love, I said without even looking up, "Well, I don't know what you mean. I drive an ambulance. This is my first time doing this." He made some noises of protest and voiced his fears that I would hurt him, so I stopped him and I asked him, "Would you like me to go get a qualified woman to come and do it?" Now, he apparently liked that idea less and let me continue, and the entire time I was dying trying not to smile. I mean, this guy had palpable anxiety the entire time. And for reference, the cast saw doesn't even cut your skin, it just tickles, meaning that this guy was freaking out literally over nothing. Oh man, imagine being so stupid that you're trying to be like,
I need someone qualified, and that will be a man.
It's like, dude, you're an idiot. Any one of those nurses could have easily gotten in there and been like, yeah, I can take this cast off with my eyes closed. But instead, this guy decided to be like, I only want a man to do it. So I love the fact that you pranked this guy because he absolutely deserved it. An entitled bank manager demands that I say nothing to any of their clients coming in and out of the bank. So I decide to maliciously comply by literally saying nothing, which somehow still pisses off this manager even more than I ever expected. Here's what happened. So I work in contract security as an armed guard at a major utility company. I pick up extra work on my days off from my main site, covering banks that the company I work for has as clients as well. Today, I covered a branch of a large bank that has a white and red logo like stagecoaches and traces their roots back to the mid-1800s. And I'm sure you can probably connect the dots if you really think about it. After I was allowed to enter the bank, the branch manager gave me a rundown and read me the riot act right off the bat. And I had a feeling at that time that this might be a long day. 30 minutes later, a bank customer came in looking lost and said that she had an appointment with a banker. I greeted her and I told her to take a seat and that they'll be with her shortly. Well, that prompted the manager to come out from the back and get on to me for telling the customer to take a seat. She told me that I wasn't allowed to give any direction to anyone coming in as it could cause problems. And it's like, okay, I guess that's reasonable enough. Well, an hour or so later, a man entered the branch with a problem and he was a bit irate because of his issue. The manager said she could try to help him and ran into his issues, which caused him to get even more irate, especially since she was not acting very helpful and kept putting the blame on him for something that appeared to be the bank's fault. She came out from behind the teller desk and was looking for a banker to help the gentleman, and while she was wandering around, I engaged him in conversation. He was wearing a Marine Corps hat, and I started chatting with him about what he did in the Marine Corps and other things along that line. Well, she finally figured something out, and instead of calling the gentleman over, she called my name and did the throat slashing motion. After she was finished with the gentleman and wasn't able to help him while still blaming him for the situation, she called me over and proceeded to lay into me, saying to me about how we had just spoken about talking to people. She literally said that I'm here for presence only, and I'm not here to de-escalate, one of the main primary purposes of a security guard, or to speak with any of the clients. She said that my conversation with a man could have caused problems for the bank, despite it not being about the bank at all. She also said I wasn't to talk to customers at all. I asked her if she wanted me to be seen and not heard, and she indicated that's what she wanted from me. She then once again said she would call my supervisor if I had a problem and didn't understand her. Well, at this point, the message was received loud and clear. I notified my supervisor of the incident and then decided I was going to comply with the orders to the letter of the law. And this is where my malicious compliance came in, because I decided to communicate for the rest of the day with signs, from the limited sign language I know from my wife and friends, and just using gestures to try and communicate. People would ask me questions and I would just gesture and point to the please wait here sign. People would talk about the weather and I just nod along. I directed people to stand in line with gestures and nods. This went on just until before noon, when the branch manager pulled me into his office with the bank manager. He proceeded to talk about their concerns and asked me what had happened with the irate gentleman. I filled him in and it was pretty obvious by his reaction that my version of events didn't match up with what the bank manager had told him. Nevertheless, he proceeded to tell me how I was supposed to do things and that we had to work together. According to the both of them, anything that I say, even not related to the bank or financial matters, can cause problems, and it's best to not say anything, especially to irate customers. Afterwards, as I was leaving his office, I informed him that I had already let my supervisor know of the situation and that any further issues would be best brought to his attention. I'm half expecting them to call my supervisor to have me removed early, and honestly, that will be perfect for me, as I never plan to cover this location in the future ever again. I'm eating my lunch now, but I plan on continuing my malicious compliance after my break ends. I'll be present and do my rounds as I'm supposed to do, but nothing says that I have to greet people or discuss anything with anyone. Well, fast forward and I actually have an end of day update. When speaking to my manager at the end of the day, he informed me that they requested that I not return to the branch because of how I responded to their request to not speak to the customers. But I told him that was fine. I was going to request to not go back to that branch anyways, and I asked if I was getting written up. He said that I was in the clear as it was obvious that I was following the client's instructions to the letter of the law. And I know this is probably not a very satisfying conclusion based on a lot of stories you might find in this subreddit, but this is a very good conclusion in the contract security world, especially when you're dealing with clients like this. Yeah, this is some weird behavior because seriously, this guy is literally taking care of your bank. Like, why would you not want him to be like personable and kind to the people coming in and out? Like, I don't know about you, but if I was a bank manager, I'd be like, yeah, if you see something, absolutely say something. Be nice and show people where to go. Like, that's totally fine. The fact that they're trying to be like, oh yeah, you can't de-escalate anything. Like, that's crazy to me because like you literally are trained for that. You're a security guard, dude. Like, what are they thinking? If there's anyone that should be able to like de-escalate a situation, it's this guy. So yeah, this entire situation is kind of backwards and really weird, and I'm sorry they treated you that way because you did not deserve that in the slightest. An entitled rich jerk thinks that the rules literally don't apply to him, as he practically demands that I shut down a synchronized swimming class so that him and his daughter can go swimming during a time that is not open for swimmers. And I'm honestly so glad that I quit this job because I am sick of dealing with entitled jerks like this. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I used to work at a private club as a lifeguard and a swim instructor. So the facility I worked at has 3 pools. It has the main pool, which can adjust the floor levels on one side of the pool for open swim to make it shallow, and we can drop the level down to roughly 9 feet for activities such as water polo, synchronized swimming, and any other sort of deep water activity like our scuba club. The other pool is fairly shallow. It's roughly only 4 feet deep, and it's typically used for lap swimming, so it is significantly colder. And then there's the third pool. We call this one the sun deck because it was right on the balcony where the sun let in, and it was significantly warmer than the other 2 pools, typically used for family swimming and that sort of thing. At the time, I was guarding the first pool, and we had just lowered the floor for the synchronized swimming class that was about to take place. These pools have designated hours for designated activities. Open swim had ended at 2 o'clock and was going to be closed for an hour for the synchronized swimming class. Well, in comes a father holding what appears to be a 2-year-old girl, who then asked us why the pool had been lowered. Well, I told him there was a class, so the open swim was closed, meaning that he would have to use the sun deck, which was at the top floor, or if he wanted to use that pool, he just had to wait an hour and find something else to do in the meantime. And for reference, the sun deck was literally a short elevator ride. Well, when I said this, he looked at me like I had just kicked his puppy and immediately went into a tirade saying that he spends so much money every year here and all he wanted to do was let his daughter swim. So I reminded him that the sun deck was open for open swim and he could gladly take his child upstairs. But apparently that wasn't good enough because he then started screaming at me that it was my job to keep that pool open for open swim and that somehow I'm responsible for it. And it's like, no bro, my job is so people don't drown. He then proceeded to cuss me out and tell me that it was my fault that his daughter couldn't go swimming and now they had to go home and I apparently ruined her entire day. I then told him that the schedules were posted outside of the swimming doors and if he had a complaint about our scheduling, he could gladly bring it up with the lead guard. But I was not raising the floor for one kid when we had a scheduled program. Now it was way worse when I was the swim instructor teaching kids. They always yelled at me why their kid wasn't learning how to do backstrokes yet, and it's like, well, I don't know, your child's like 2 years old. This place was incredibly bougie. Like a family of 4 would pay roughly $25,000 a year just to use the facilities. And with all things considered, I honestly do not regret quitting for a single second. Oh, that completely explains everything. That last line right there explains why this guy was being so weird. He was just some rich guy who's clearly spoiled, who tried to be like, oh, I can't believe you ruined my day and my daughter's day. And it's always these kinds of people where if you tell them no, they freak out and they're like, I can't believe you've offended me this way. And it's like, dude, I didn't do anything wrong. Like literally, I just said you have to go at another time or go upstairs to the other pool. You know, the pool that's in the sun that will be enjoyable, where the water's warm and it feels nice. But no, you're right, sir. Let me close down this class that we have scheduled on the door, by the way, just so you and your dumb kid can splash around in the water for a few minutes. That sounds like a great plan, pal. Like seriously, what's wrong with this guy? Like, does he really expect that kind of like customer service? Because that's not customer service. That's literally delusional thinking. And guess what, buddy? Just because you spend $25,000 a year to be there doesn't mean that you're somehow better than everybody else, because you're surrounded by the same type of people. Everybody else paid for this and yet they still follow the rules. Like seriously, what's going on right now? Like this is so stupid. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would probably quit as well, because this kind of treatment is absolutely uncalled for. Thanks for watching. Subscribe down below if you haven't already, and also please subscribe to Am I the Genius. I think you're going to love what they're making over there. It's a great channel and you should definitely check it out. Everything will be linked down below in the description. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.